Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of y'all, and peace out to the rest of you. This is the blackest hearted, blackest minded, blackest man on social media, signing black and shining again, asking you to hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. That being said, I'm here this morning, my time, this evening, you all's time, with my man Fula Sports, Fula man. And I just put up a link on my community tab to this. So you all go and check out Fula man's channel. The name of the channel is Fula Sports, and I'm typing it into the chat right now. If you simply put that into the search button, then you're going to find his channel. And his audio has been improving as it gets more recent. So if you want some benefit, definitely go there. He'll tell you about boxing, fitness, and of course, the solution to the problems that plague black folks today. So Fula man, assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum salam, rahmatullah, barakatuhu.
I forgot how to say how are you in Fulani. I'm sorry about that. I remember thank you, and I forgot how are you. So forgive me. But how's everything going out there on the west side now?
Don't worry about it. I haven't really been doing like a lot of Somali stuff in terms of like trying to like get the tongue down, things like that. But I do remember City Tahe, and I do remember Magasan or something like that, something to that effect.
Okay, the way to say, you mean the way to say thank you?
I know that how are you doing is like City Tahe or something like that, City Tahe or something to that effect. but the rest I still need to brush up on. You know, there's different things, there's different, like, I guess you could say, dialects that I understand in terms of like just different lingo, like Creole. Even if you wanted to say like hi in Creole, you can just say like Modi Busta. That means how are you doing in Creole, you know, and that can work too, you know.
Okay, in Creole.
Yeah,
You
because
mean
the thing
in
is,
Bissau Creole, right?
yeah, in Guinea-Bissau, Cape Verde, and Creole, we say Modi Busta because all Creole is just basically Africanized. Like, for example, you have the Haitian Creole. That's just Africanized French, you know. Then you have the like Guinea-Bissau, Cape Verdean Creole, which is just Africanized broken Portuguese in essence, pretty much. You know, with a high vocabulary in African words. You know what I mean?
Now that sounds like that would be more interesting to learn than even Portuguese.
Yeah.
And with the way that with the Pride movement in Brazil, I wouldn't be shocked if Black Brazilians started using the Creole out of Cape Verde and Guinea-Bissau.
Yeah.
And maybe they will, because now I have noticed that in the English-speaking countries, Ghanaians are and Gambians are beginning to use more of the Jamaican English. And put that in because there's already a similarity. So they're beginning to put some of the Jamaican English into their pre-existing pidgin. And the Sierra Leonean English that they call Creole already has certain similarities. But that's because of the common Mende root. It's not that they were copying the Jamaicans, but it was a common Mende root. But now, as Black folk begin to become more proud and also begin to contact each other more, and they share each other's media, I have seen that within the same language group, they will in fact take on more from each other.
Yeah, definitely. That definitely is the case. Exchanging ideas and stuff like that. That definitely is the case. You know, it can be a cohesive exchange, and so there isn't no problem with that. I mean, even in Nigeria, you know, you have Pidgin English, you know, which is a sort of Creole. You know, they speak Pidgin. You know what I mean? Although English is like the official language, most of the time when you like read Nigerian newspapers, it's in Pidgin English, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Matter of fact, I noticed that oftentimes they're more likely the ones I know who have social media accounts, they're more likely to post in Pidgin to each other than they are to post in dictionary or textbook English, which is fine.
Yeah, definitely.
So it sort of undermines what people say when they talk about us being the most divided people in the world. It kind of raises the question, are we really the most divided, or are we just the most diverse? In terms of biological races, are we the most divided race, or are we the most diverse race? It begs that question, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, because the thing is that there are people within the race that divide. Don't get it twisted, like the nut we're going to talk about. You know, he's definitely one of them. But there are others who are just pretty much, you know, they have moral ethics about themselves, so they just want to do things the right way, you know.
Yeah. And the thing is that, in all honesty, I've noticed that a lot of us have a tendency to assume that somebody else hates us, and then when we actually take the time to talk and get to know them, we realize that there was no reason for them to hate us, as there was no reason for us to hate them, and that there's always some third party that was involved behind it, or somebody that was hoping to God that we wouldn't talk and be nice and compare notes.
Right.
I've come to realize that over time. I started to see that in college.
Yeah.
And in that regard, I am very glad that my parents raised me as pro-Black as they did during those days, and to be as appreciative. I would say proud, but what I mean more so was appreciative of the origin from which we come. And this is coming from a man who may be voted off the island one day. This is coming from a man who, in America, the vote may be taken one day, and I may be told to call myself something else. But coming from African stock, I am glad that I learned to question what everybody else would want us to believe about that stock and about the continent and what it means to come from that origin. Because when I got to college and met them Liberians, we got to comparing some notes, and they explained certain things of which I've been unaware of before, but of which I suspected. Things I suspected but didn't know exactly were true. I mean, they explained that missionaries were over there not just teaching about Jesus, or I should have said about white baby Jesus, but they were also over there teaching them that we played darts with pictures of them and their faces, and that we didn't like them very much, and that we looked down on them, and then that's what they were told, and of course we were told that they don't like us and they look down on us, and that they think we're wild and uncivilized, and they said that they weren't ready to automatically buy into that, because these Liberians just so happened to be both indigenous and American Liberians that had returned. They were a combination.
Right.
And they broke a lot of the mystery, the wall and the glass of mystery. They really broke a lot of that. And when they just explained what it was like for them in the interior and in the capital. So in other words, in traditional areas and in urban areas, there were a whole lot of similarities. I mean, for one, I didn't realize they had crawfish there, and we love crawfish on the Gulf Coast. And they were talking about some of the food. And then when I had some of the food, I said, wait a minute. So this is what Creoles were trying to cook when we came up with our own dishes, like the jambalaya, like the gumbo. Oh, wow.
Believe it or not, if you want to get technical, and I'm not saying it's the exact same thing. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying this. I'm not saying that, oh yeah, it's the same thing. But when you look at, like, for example, the jambalaya rice, and then you look at like jollof rice, it's kind of have similar kind of preparation to it, similar ingredients to it. And, it just goes to show that, this is how it is. Even when you look at, I'm reading a book right now about like slave revolts in Cuba. And of course, they talked about the Muslim element and the maroon element in those revolts. And then you had the Maroons who would plant things that were from Africa, like yams and, things like that. They would grow rice and what have you. And also, they're similar. You look at Cuban cuisine today, and, when I was there, it was like, I felt like, in a way, I was just eating like food from back home,
Yep, because that a lot of the foods in the Americas were in fact influenced by the foods from back home. Some of the foods we even transported, like okra, was taken from the continent to the Americas, as an example. I'm trying to think. I don't remember exactly where watermelon got started, but I don't remember if it started in the Americas or if it started on the continent. I think it started in the Americas, but there were some others like, the sweet potato or the yam. Yeah, that was transported. And so, of course, some of the recipes and some of the seasonings were also transported. And I've forgotten exactly which ones they were, but I've forgotten the list of them. But we did cover this in a history class. And it was, people were trying to hold on to what they had back home, and whatever they managed to take with them, even though they were grabbed up very suddenly, they would take as much with them as possible. And so, as a matter of fact, when people started disappearing from the interior, some people began to just carry certain things with them in case they got snatched up, and take those things with them. So, and then when they would get snatched up, they had at least a few things that they would have wanted to carry with them. And so when I hear people trying to be so divisive today, and I don't necessarily even mean people just saying, well, I have a different opinion about what you are. But when I see people trying to be divisive, and actually start enmity and anger and hatred. I already know from a historical standpoint that they're exaggerating something that was kind of happening, usually rare. I know that that's what they're doing. And like this dude, Nijja, I mean, Nature Boy. That's why I'm finna roast him in the next few minutes.
You gotta like, yeah, we definitely gotta roast him because like, one thing about him is he has so many multiple personalities and stuff like that that you don't know what you're gonna get from him, you know, like, and so that's the thing. And same with Brother Polite, same with Young Pharaoh, they all do the same thing. They all like are very divisive and do things like that. They don't they don't want unity. They want a cult following. That's what they want. They don't want unity. It's like a cult following, basically. That's what it is for these guys, you know, having a cult following.
Well, if that is the case, then that pretty much explains everything about their motives, because it can't possibly be any sort of salvation of Black folks or any bringing of truth to Black folks that are going to help us out. And I'll, if it's all right with you, I'm going to go ahead and explain what motivated us. I'll explain to the audience what motivated us to come up and do this, even though we're trying to inform the audience of a solution for Black people, while we would turn around and then pick somebody and put our targets and our sights and our crosshairs on him, if we ourselves are not looking for the fragmentation of Black folks for any unnecessary reasons or unnecessary criteria.
Right. Yeah, that's not a problem. Before you start, I'm just going to say this, that, you know, I know LS men who would beat the brakes off of Nature Boy, you know, so his arguments are null and void. You know, I know like plenty of LS dudes who would like take flight on him and hurt that dude very badly, you know.
Well, I believe it. I have to believe it because, frankly, I was raised by a man who could have done it just 15 years ago. I mean, he, as Nature Boy is now today, and I was raised by a man that 15 years ago could have put him on his behind, could have kicked the stew out of him. Same height, so I assume same arm span, reach advantage, abnormally quick reflexes, quite strong, and very aggressive when cornered. Everything that Nature Boy would say is not true. That's what this gentleman was. And it was my own dad. So I believe you when you say you know some guys. See, my dad didn't get in the ring and train with boxing, but he stayed in shape. And so you're talking, you as a boxer know people to get in the ring and train and then go and hit the weights and train. So you know people that are both boxers and bodybuilders. So I believe you when you say you know. You probably can't even count them all at one time.
Yeah, it's not even like even dudes who aren't involved in sports, who I know just like from who I know in the neighborhood, who like, you know, you go to the, because, you know, you got to understand that, you know, I come, you know, another misconception that needs to be said is that honestly, you know, Black people of just different origins, be it Caribbean, being African, usually most of the time, we're going to be in the same place. We're going to be in the same inner city, you know? And so before I was able to get my resources up, I was staying in like inner city neighborhoods. So you would see guys fight in the back of the building, you know? You would see guys fighting in the back of the building and you would know from their reputation, like, oh, this guy has a good stand-up game. You know, so I know guys who haven't even stepped foot in the ring who are just like light skinned and who just know how to fight. You know, that's just what they did, you know? So like, that's why it's like for him to say these dumb things, he's really foolish, you know?
And on top of that, somebody just explained to us in the chat something that really nullifies everything that this guy, Nature Boy, has been saying. regarding LS Men. And if unfortunately I can't put it on the screen yet, but if you repost it, I can see it. But if you repost it, then I might be able to actually put it up on the screen where everybody could see it. But it was Scream that mentioned it. Exactly what he associates. Oh, okay. There it is. And there's more. I'll let people read it.
Believe it or not, you know, I'm just going to say this. Believe it or not, before he became quote unquote part of the conscious community, before he did that, now granted, I wouldn't recommend any guy to watch it or anything like that. You know, I wouldn't like just I wouldn't just say, oh yeah, you should watch it or you should pay attention to this. But there's actually like a couple of videos floating around showing this behavior. There's actually a video of a fake doctor who was actually put it this way, doing a checkup on him. And that checkup involved like many things that are gay, you know. There is a rumor that, as a matter of fact, for that checkup scene, he only got $50 for that. I'm not sure how true it is, but that's what kind of world he was in, you know, was that kind of like, I guess you can say gay porn, gay porn world. He was in the gay porn world, you know what I mean?
Cuss word. Oh goodness. Okay, so he was. So this is several people that have been able to corroborate this for me. Now, of course, I didn't see it. I wouldn't. I would. It's not something I'd even be able to do a search for to find over here. The censoring is heavy. I'm glad it is. But I've got. This is now at this point. This is 3 people that have written and said that they know of some stuff that this dude used to do. Some GAY things he used to do. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to explain to the audience at this point our motivation. I will explain more of my motivation, not because I'm being self-centered in this case, Fula, but only because I know more about my motivation, and I'm not going to speak for you beyond anything that you've already told me. What you told me, sure, but anything that you have not, I'm just being careful. And that's why most of my motivation is going to be mine.
Yeah, you know, with me, even like as much as I don't like that guy, I'm not going to just make blatant things up about him. I'm just going to fact check it. And then once I fact checked it, I'm like, yeah, he did do that kind of stuff. You know, he was involved in that kind of world, actually. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, look, you're a witness then. And I don't know how many witnesses it takes in the Sharia to convict somebody of booty banditry. I know for regular run-of-the-mill fornication or adultery, it's 4. I don't know what the number of witnesses for booty banditry, but the fact is we got 3 at this point.
Yeah, you know, and that's the thing about him. He doesn't realize that, like, you know, if we were under like that jurisdiction, that he would be in some, like, it would be hasta la vista for him, because the simple fact is you're doing that for entertainment purposes, and some sick people are watching you basically do that for entertainment. So maybe, hey, those sick people, if they turn around and say to you know, higher ups, say, yeah, this guy is involved in that, and you know, they actually saw it with their own eyes, then it would be hasta la vista for that guy.
Yep. He would, for that type of thing, I think he would get free flying lessons, or he would get to test his muscle against the weight of a wall. One of those 2 that I remember. I'm sure that there are other methods too. And the thing is that the scholars never disagreed on the result of the punishment. They only disagreed on the method of the punishment for that. In all cases, every scholar agreed that that punishment was a capital punishment. And Abu Bakr, there were some people that during his reign that started doing this stuff. And Abu Bakr was able to, I mean, there were some witnesses that told on them too. And Abu Bakr not only executed them, but there was no burial for them. He burned the bodies. It's a rare instance in which that happens. I mean, cremation and burning is very rare for us. It's really categorically forbidden in most cases, but apparently this was an exception because if there was no body left to bury, then there would not have been a question as to whether they're buried in the Muslim cemetery or the non-Muslim cemetery. And so that way there wouldn't have to be this sort of debate.
Right.
But I'll go ahead and tell the audience what the motivation was, and I'll give them some background information, inshallah.
Inshallah.
All right, so those of you listening, in a video of Nature Boy's debate with a man named Dukulu, D-U-K-U-L-U, Dukulu, who doesn't need any defense from me or from Fula, but who's still entitled to be treated fairly like anyone else is, decided he would take it on himself to educate and correct Nature Boy. Because Nature Boy said something about cells in the body following astrological patterns of planetary and stellar bodies. And I'm saying it exactly like that for that reason. You and I are aware that astronomy and astrology are two different things. Nature Boy was not quite aware of that. So he mistakenly called them astrological patterns because he's what we call Nijja literate. Now, once Nature Boy saw that Dukulu was going to school him with distinctions between the pseudo-conscious, pseudo-science that Edward Anderson rightly calls Nijja babble and actual biochemistry, he decided to just keep on over-talking Dukulu. Now, he wouldn't let Dukulu speak. And I know that when people are in a debate, so-called, but they keep on doing that, it's because they're hiding something. So later, Dukulu decided to politely ask him if he could speak and finish a thought. And Nature Boy wouldn't let him get a sentence in once he realized that Dukulu wasn't going to fall for the Nijja babble. So in this video, and it's only one video I found matching this, and shout out to Fula Man for sending me the link to it before so that I could see this with my own eyes and hear it with my own ears. This way I wouldn't be telling you anything made up. In this video, at the 53rd minute and 45th second timestamp, Nature Boy finally told Dukulu that men Dukulu shade, i.e. LS men, aren't taken seriously by the very women for whom Nature Boy said that Dukulu was simping. Now, I've been told that Dukulu does simp for sisters. I just didn't see it myself.
Yeah, he does. He does. As a matter of fact, not to cut you off, he's very much a beta. You know, I'm not, no disrespect to him, but he's very much a beta male. And the thing is with all these conscious Negroes is, don't get it twisted, and I'm pretty sure you know this. The conscious women in that community ride a lot of conscious cock carousels themselves. And so, you know, once one conscious dude is done with them, they get passed on to another. They go to another. As a matter of fact, Nature Boy is notorious for doing that, for keeping a circle going with these cock carousels, you know.
Okay, so he passes them on to the next.
Correct.
Okay, I see. All right. Well, I trust you as a source, and I wasn't going to say anything at first about who told me, but it was you that informed me that Dukulu simps. But because you've said things before, and I've actually looked into them, and you know how some people get caught in a lie. I've caught you telling the truth, and so when you told me that he simps, I trusted your word. Normally, when it comes to an accusation, I want to see it. In this case, I have reason to trust your word because I've caught you before telling the truth. And so I'm taking your word for it that he does do this until something else comes up and and is evidence that I'd be able to evidence that would allow us to deny it. Right now, I mean, you've seen him do it, so I'm buying and concluding that he does it.
Right. And then also one thing I want to say, and I feel bad for this guy because like I truly believe that she has something. But there was one girl who was there with Nature Boy, and you know, she rode 2 cock carousels. She rode Nature Boy's cock carousel. Then she got pregnant by a dude who was there. The dude is so beta and so dependent on Nature Boy that he didn't take care of the baby. Now she left the group, and now she's like a sucker, unfortunately, is now taking it upon himself to raise the kid, and also taking it upon himself to house the kid as well, and actually take her on as I guess you can say a wife. And in doing that, it just like again sets us backwards, you know.
Mm-hmm. And okay, so yeah, that does. And let's see, there it goes right there. If he didn't look after his own, she wound up running. I mean, granted, what else was she going to do? And this is a lesson to us about the sisters, in that they may not be responsible and may not even act like adults. But when it comes down to us, they're going to demand that we act like adults, and they're going to leave if we don't, i.e. looking after the babies. Unless, of course, you're just that dude that they've already pre-planned to sire their kids without looking out for them. I mean, there are that 7%, they just want to have the babies. They're the 7% of the men for whom they just want to have the babies at other men's expense. But if you ain't one of those guys, they're going to leave if you're not looking out for your responsibilities, even if they don't look out for theirs. So the thing was, and you saw this because you sent me the link. And you saw how Nature Boy went on to describe, you know, those first 2.5 minutes, I guess. Nature Boy was like, he was describing how sisters tend to view LS men, like Dukulu and like me even. And the thing is that at first it sounded like, well, this is what we and even sisters themselves have started to say in outright recent years. How is it that Nature Boy is actually even Nature Boy is even actually disagreeing with us? But then after that 2.5 minutes, you heard him begin to justify these views himself, as if sisters were right to look this stereotypical way at LS men. And to be honest, Dukulu actually wanted to stay on topic and on target, to his credit. So he, of course, said, well, can I finish? I haven't even explained anything yet. And he wouldn't even let Dukulu finish a sentence during that tirade. So when Dukulu said to him, look at your women, no. Nature Boy said, don't compare yourself to me. You're not a real man. And in jail, you be my girlfriend. So Nature Boy decided he was going to drop the guy from the stream panel. So he did that. So the guy wasn't even there anymore. But then he kept on talking and repeated how he would violate this guy in jail. So wait a minute.
That's what he does, you know, not to cut you off, but that's honestly what he does. Like, the thing is he presents this image of bravado, that he's done some things, that he's really been into some things, that he was raised in prison, and that he was raised around real men. But, you know, I hate to say it, and I've trolled him a couple of times in his live stream, and I said real men don't get fisted, and real men don't get their joysticks played with by another man. And so, like, I told him, like, you're disqualified from even calling yourself a man. You know, you're very disqualified. And the messed up thing is that I made videos in the past, and you have women and you have men coming at me saying, what's in the past is in the past. And I say, well, there's no coming back from that past. Okay, you were with men. There's no coming back. So you can't speak for real men if you were with men. You know, it's impossible.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not something that you can just say, okay, I'm not doing that anymore. And granted, you and I believe in repentance and in Toba, and yet we can see why this is not going to work. But we can also see why it is that he's being why he's being supported and why we're being told to forgive. And that is, frankly, the sisterhood is at war with heterosexuality, specifically Black heterosexuality, just like white supremacy is. If you think about it, they're not, even when they withhold and they say no, we know sisters are not withholding the drawers and saying no because of chastity in many cases. Nowadays, even a lot of religious women aren't doing it for that reason. What they're doing is they're just withholding it just to have a power play so that they can kind of corner the market. And then, as we know, get a bunch of men to come along and get the majority to play cleanup men behind the minority that they actually want to give them drawers to. That's another topic for another day, but that's really all that is. That's why they're defending.
Right. But then another thing too, though, is for a dude who says that he hates like LS women and LS men, like that's all he brings there, though. That's who his baby mother is an LS woman, you know. So it's like, okay, do you really hate them, or do you really just hate what they do to you? You know, or do you like low key have a fetish for them, basically, that you're hiding behind this so-called hatred, you know?
Well, it's probably, I guess, I mean, it seems to be a fetish because that's what he chooses. Now, granted, he said that he had one wife from each shade represented of Black women. So he was trying to make it seem like it's a rainbow. But he actually answered that even in that video. Because he said that when Dukulu said, look at your women, though, he said, if you can't compare yourself to me, you're not a real man, and in jail, you be my girlfriend. But then he also said something about how his genes are going to dominate lighter skinned genes, and that any woman can be with a dark skinned man like himself, but that nobody should have been with a man that's Dukulu shaped. Pretty much saying that LS men should just be celibate. And voluntarily so too, imposing this upon them, not even something that he's saying for them to go along with. So he actually sat up and said that for him, for Nature Boy himself to be with these various shades of women is fine, but nobody should be with Dukulu. And that lady that was with Dukulu next to him should not have been with him. And here's where it gets even worse. Because you and I know he's called himself God. He even called himself God in that video. So why is he talking? But he,
you know, what's even worse is like he called himself the messenger of Allah and Older Bilal Mendalik for that. And so now, like, without a shadow of a doubt, like, I know it's like kufr. Like I can say freely, you know, and I don't really like to use this word, but I can just say, yeah, he's a kafir. Like, for sure. Like 100%, this dude is a kafir. You know, he is on kufr 110%, you know, going against everything, going against all natural things that were put in place, you know.
Well, he did say this, and of course, that right off the bat, that's outright, that's not only disbelief, that's disbelief and blasphemy thrown in together. And that does remove all doubt, because we already know that the last messenger has been sent as a seal of the messengers. We already understand that Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam he brought the final revelation. Even when Jesus comes back, alayhi salam, he's not necessarily coming back to bring a new revelation. Exactly. He's coming back as a confirmation to the old one, because he was the point of contention and debate between the three faiths.
And that's another thing, not to cut you off, but that's another thing that he went with. I'm the Messiah. And it's like, the way you refute that, oh, the Bilal, the way you refute that is that messiahs didn't get sodomized. You know, like that's just a refutation right there. Messiahs didn't have, you know, I kind of went off the deep end. You know, I shouldn't have said this, but I said it anyway. You know, excuse my language, but I said messiahs don't, their goal isn't to have bastard kids that they try to inbreed. You know, like but he ignores my messages because he knows what time it is with me. You know, like that's the thing. Like if I don't really do it anymore, but when I was like kind of like getting at him and stuff like that, he blocked me right away because he knew what time it was. You know, he knew I had smoke for him for days, you know.
Yep, that's very true. When we have an encyclopedia of smoke and fire for this guy, I mean, it's not like we're blowing smoke in his face. It's more like we're dumping hot coals on him. That's the kind of the inexhaustible sources that we wind up having. Because not even because we're so smart and so great, we're not. I don't say this as if I'm bragging about either of us, but it's because it's just that youth now understand what's already been revealed from 1400 years ago, and even prior to that. He just goes right against all of it. And so it's more like he just keeps walking into whatever penalties have been revealed for anything. He just goes right into that. What you don't do this, he goes and he does it. And so when he called himself God, of course, the first thought that jumped in any listener's head at that point that's thinking is, how did they arrest God and kick him out of several countries that supposedly he created? I mean, if he's God, he would have created the land in which these countries sit. So how they gonna kick him out of his own land? They put him in jail involuntarily and then told him he can't come back, and he has not been back since then. So obviously he's very much so a man. And then the worst thing too is that, and you saw in the video, Nature Boy said that he should have come in like a geek. Like he should have just admitted he's a geek and just started talking like one from the very beginning. And then he started to say, you ain't no real black man. Then he also said, you ain't no gorilla like us. So Nature Boy sat up and compared dark-skinned black men to gorillas.
Well, believe it or not, I know this is going to sound crazy, brother, but his favorite movie is Planet of the Apes. Like, that's one of his favorite films. He always compares himself to a gorilla. He always says that. And I'm like, you know, me being from the continent and actually seeing like silver black gorillas and seeing their nature and their temperament, I've even said many a times that you're nothing close to that. You're a chipmunk, you know. But that is his favorite comparison. That is his very favorite comparison is gorilla. But the thing is and I'm gonna just disclose this. When a gorilla wants to fight, when a gorilla wants to fight like head up, you know what I mean? He fights against other gorillas, male gorillas for dominance. What Nature Boy does is he actually likes to fight women more. You know, like that's his bread and butter. Like he likes to beat up women. You know, that's his main target. His target is not really guys. His main target is women, really. You know, so you can't be a gorilla with that kind of energy.
Yeah, you got a point, because male gorillas rarely hit females. It's true, and they rarely hit their young. In the wild, they're most likely to fight with other male gorillas, as you said, and with leopards. Those are the most common combat in which they engage. And the thing is, usually the male gorilla is a source of fear and terror to the leopards. Now we know leopards, they have the nastiest scratches of all the cats, because their claws are more curved. It keeps dirt and bacteria underneath the claws. So when they scratch, they really could scratch an opponent and then just follow them while they get sick if they wanted to do that. But they haven't adopted that as a strategy. However, they do come when leopards fight, they fight like chainsaws in a nutshell.
Yeah, and speaking of which, when I was in Cuba, most of the secret societies were based off of leopards. You know, like you had the Abacua secret society, which was based off of the leopards. Now, granted, another thing that is not being said, but this is another topic for a different day. A lot of the Cuban secret societies, most of the things are pretty parallel to Islam. As a matter of fact, I don't want to say this because the thing is about these conscious Negroes, including Nature Boy, is that they don't read. You know, they don't read into things. And I even asked a Marabout from Senegal. I sat down with him, I talked with him, and he said Orishas are Muslims. You know, he said Orishas are Muslim jinn. You know, he told me that straight up. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. You know, that makes perfect sense. And you'll find in those secret societies like the Abakua that it's pretty parallel to what we believe in. You know what I mean? But because the like of Nature Boy and stuff like that, they don't read and things like that. They'll never know that. You know, as a matter of fact, I went to one of the lodges there in Cuba. You know, I was invited to go to the lodge to see what they do. And yeah, and I was like, oh, okay, no problem. It's not what I'm trying to say is not what the conscious community makes it out to be. Like the conscious community makes these things out to be something like some kind of fetishism and some kind of like I guess, you know, they romanticize these dumb things. And really all they're doing is just, you know, and this is no disrespect. I'm not trying to say this in a disrespectful way, but what they do is they just add their niggerisms into all the things that we already know.
Yeah. Well, as you said, they don't read, and you're going to wind up adding this stuff in if you don't read and learn about things. And I mean, you think about it. So his favorite movie is Planet of the Apes, and he starts to compare himself to something it's not accurately depicted in the movie anyway, not completely, obviously. And then to make matters worse, he's still comparing himself to the species that, although it is the biggest, he's comparing himself to a species that was the most likely to help the humans against the others of its own kind. That's the other thing too. When you look at it's the movie. I don't remember exactly what the name of it is, but I think it's the third, in which you have some human military figures that were fighting against them at this point. Woody Harrelson was the leader of the human military that was fighting against them, and they actually had gorillas that were helping out some of the humans, and they were calling them donkeys. They were all gorillas. They weren't orangutans. They weren't chimps in it. So the thing is that this guy, Nature Boy, has gone and compared black men in general, not himself. He has compared black men in general, the so-called most authentic, most original, i.e. the darkest black men in his mind, to gorillas. That's white supremacy right there. And
he doesn't even realize it. That's the sad thing. He doesn't even realize that he's low-key a white supremacist. Like he doesn't realize that he's low-key like a white supremacist in his actions and in his words.
Right. He has no clue. And see, the only black man that it's okay for anybody to compare to a gorilla is me, in all honesty, because my behavior is more like a gorilla than any other person I've seen, really, black or white. I mean, I actually do kind of look like one. I've thumped my chest without even realizing it. I've woken up in the morning craving bananas. And now my wife has bananas she used to have bananas with a lot of meals because she's Somali. So I'm
Yeah,
the only
that's
non-Somali man that eats as many bananas as that eats more banana. Yeah, I'm the only non-Somali man that eats more bananas than Somali men would eat.
Speaking of
So,
bananas, you know, it for me, I'm a banana eater too. I honestly I eat 2 bananas a day, you know, sometimes 3. I start the morning off with bananas. Now, one thing I can say is that one of the scholars, and I don't know how I got into bananas, but I eat bananas in different forms. Sometimes I eat in platano forms. Sometimes I eat it in just regular forms. Sometimes I have banana flour, you know, and make something that is called gat. It's like a Eritrean fufu. Sometimes I'll make,
oh,
yeah, sometimes I'll make something called gat, which is like a porridge that sticks to your stomach for all day long, you know, and a lot of people aren't gonna like it because you eat it with yogurt, you know, you eat it with Greek yogurt, but it tastes good. You know, it's a very good food for me. But the one of the main scholars, one of the head honchos of scholars, Imam Malik, rahmatullah alayh, he loved bananas. And I think that's kind of sticks in the back of my mind.
um, yeah, but see, the thing is, and I saw your photo. You don't look like a gorilla. You eat them, but you don't actually resemble them. So it wouldn't be okay for somebody to make a comparison between you and them.
Right.
You see, uh, whereas in my case, if somebody were to say that, I really wouldn't have a leg to stand on to defend myself. Depending on what day it is and what kind of mood I've been in that day. But you notice that Nature Boy he's blending this so-called original black man, or he's blending the dark-skinned black man with the gorilla, which is, as we know, white supremacist fantasy. And this is something that a lot of street dudes really believe. Really, just a lot of low IQ Negroes in general tend to believe, because we came up, especially my generation, we came up seeing Tarzan movies on Saturday afternoons when the cartoons would go off. I don't remember what channel it was, but these Tarzan movies from long ago would come on. So I'm talking, 80s, we would see this, but the Tarzan movies were from the 60s and before, sometimes even from the 30s. And a lot of them were just in black and white. So you had all these dangers of the jungle being presented in the storylines. And of course, Tarzan overcomes them all because he's supposedly the super intelligent white man in a primitive jungle that masters the jungle more than any black folks who've lived next door to these environments have for millions or thousands of years, whichever one. So the storylines, of course, are just completely fantastic, meaning they're based on fantasy. But the idea was that you could blend the savagery of the gorilla with the savagery of the original black man in his native environment. That was the idea being presented. We know that's racist just listening to me describe this. We know, yeah, that's racist as hell. But Nature Boy actually took this like it's real. So he's come up with, he in his mind has accepted this niggerilla hybrid of white supremacy and made that his model. And of course, you got to be illiterate to do something like that. So he's been sitting up here blending this. And the funny thing is, he ain't the darkest man in the world. And darker skin men that are darker than him don't even make these claims themselves. They should be offended. So what I'm putting forward are 2 conclusions. You and I have already agreed he's one of the minor antichrists. We've agreed on that. But I'm putting forward 2 conclusions to Black America in general, and even Black folk in any other country that know about him or someone like him. The first conclusion I'm putting out is that Black men of any shade, even the ones so like that their blackness is in question, like Sean King, and from there all the way to the darkest of us, should be ready to beat the brakes off of him if they come across him. I'm not saying look for him because that's illegal, but should be ready to beat the brakes off of him if you can get away with it. However, I'm not telling people to break the law, but since it's not against the law to isolate someone and to tell them to stay the hell away from you, he should have been canceled. by everybody. He should be
Yeah,
canceled.
yeah, and that's another thing too. And I hate to say this, and you know, I actually had to disrespect many women who follow him as well. Like I said, the LS woman who gave him a platform, who said she was Muslim, you know, I just basically said you need to fear Allah, you know, because what you're doing is like, what you're doing is against what Allah will want, you know. But of course, she cared more about the views than anything else. And unfortunately, I think she was into him as well. You know, that's the thing. She won't say it, but I think she was into him. Believe it or not, he just attracts many cock carousels women who want to ride cock carousels. Those are the ones he attracts. I remember actually, and you know, Nigerians for the most part, especially the southern ones, are in, and I'm not trying to just make this stereotype, but the southern Nigerians are off the meter. So, you know, he actually talked with the Nigerian, and he asked them, like, can I, you know, I'm trying to come back home, you know, you got something for me there? And so this Nigerian said, no, I don't think so. Like, they basically turned him down, you know. And so I said, thank God that, you know, they at least they have some sense and can see like that this guy is no good, you know.
Yeah. And so that means, and maybe that explains why he wasn't able to go back home. I mean, he could go to the Americas, but he could never set up camp back home. I mean, you are talking about. Oh,
Well,
I'm sorry. Are you talking about Nijja Boy not finding anything back, or it was a Nigerian that could not go back?
It was Nature Boy who was trying to tell like a Nigerian that he wanted to go there, but the Nigerian just basically said, "Nah, you probably wouldn't be welcome. You probably wouldn't be welcome here." You know.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well,
As a matter
that's
of
a good
fact,
thing.
not to cut you off, I'm going to add these two things. In certain parts of Nigeria, and I talked to my Nigerian friend. He's a Fulani as well. We were talking, but he speaks fluent Hausa. He speaks Hausa like fluently. But we were talking, and he said that like certain places are implementing castration. So if Nature Boy did do some of the things that he's known to do back there, there would be a high probability that he would get castrated, you know?
Okay. So in that case, then he would do everything he could to not go to those areas, because he's not willing to face any consequences for anything that he does. Kind of guy like him never tolerates consequences. As we know, I mean, even in that clip that to which I'm referring, in which he resorts to colorism to try to win a debate, and then of course continues on with the narcissism and calling himself a god, and becoming a minor antichrist. Even with all of that, he's, well, I'll tell you what, I'm sorry, I actually cut you off accidentally. I'm going to let you finish, because I might start cursing if I continue on. I'll let you finish first before I give my second conclusion.
Well, another thing we have to realize too about this guy is that he has decided to take his anger out on other people, because his childhood he never got over and things like that. He decides that it's better just to like make everybody else hurt. And so that's what he does, you know what I mean? Because he's such a weak man. Only a weak man would go sell booty, you know, like sell booty to other men like he did. You know what I mean? Only a weak man would do that. And he did that knowingly. It's not like that he wasn't trying to, it wasn't like he did it unknowingly. He did it knowingly. to be honest, he's not a man at all. He tried to go into the military. He couldn't take it. You know, he couldn't take military, the vigors of military. So he couldn't take discipline anyway. You know what I mean? So when he like with basically when he did that LS claim and stuff like that, that LS when he did that LS move, basically that was just a defense mechanism for him, because he's not a man, because he's soft. You know what I mean? And so in order to deflect him being soft, the next best thing cooking was LS men.
Yeah. He's well, the thing is that this is easy to see through. And I'm going to put forward something regarding black folks, especially in the States in this context. Black people need to treat him as though he has done and said the exact same things that he's done and said, but as if he is the same shade as Dukulu or even Sean King. The fact is that he's gotten away with what he's been able to get away with based on the stereotypes into which he's playing. It's overlooked when everything he did in the past has been overlooked. The booty banditry, if you will. I'm trying not to trigger the algorithms on YouTube, but all that nasty sodomy stuff he's engaged in, and now he says that, well, it's behind me, that's fine, but he's actually being forgiven to the extent that he has a harem of wives and several kids that he plans to inbreed with each other, and nobody's checking him on it. But if this is what's odd about it. If he was non-ADOS, he would not have been forgiven for this. Right. 2, if he was LS, he would not have been forgiven for any of this stuff. Right. And the way that he argues would have been called out, actually. He would have been completely, diagnosed and misdiagnosed, not even by clinical psychologists, but just by the sisterhood. They would have been all reading him and coming up with diagnoses and saying stuff like, I can tell somebody did X, Y, and Z to him when he was a kid. I can tell someone did X, Y, Z to him when he was a kid. Well, I can tell he enjoyed it when somebody did X, Y, and Z, and he probably goes and looks for that now. That's what they would have been doing. And so in all honesty, what many people may not know, but I begin to explain, is that you've got more LS people from the black population that are beginning to call for a separate category. And I'm going somewhere with this. You also have some black folk that are unmixed as far as they know, completely unmixed, not admixed, but unmixed, that are beginning to call for a separate category for black admixed and LS people. Now, you have these people calling for these categories, another category for people of my phenotype, and even of Nipsey Hussle's phenotype. He would be thrown into this other category. Some of them are calling with hatred, and some of them are calling without hatred. They're just saying it's just a different category, genetically speaking, so they should be recognized as such. While you have others that are saying, no, they're a bunch of sellouts, untrustworthy, get rid of them, good riddance to bad rubbish. Right. Now, this guy, Nature Boy, he's never called for an actual recategorization, but he keeps on going in and using shade as a scapegoat when he doesn't agree. So, or when he's about to get schooled. So he's causing this artificial, unnecessary division to an already traumatized population. Now, a reason I'm mentioning this is because it's understood that we're not going to have race-based unity. We get that. That's not going to happen. But the reason we're not going to have race-based unity is not due to DNA sequences, including the ones that affect shade and other parts of the phenotype. It's going to be based on the mindset of people like him. But he's been able to get away with this stuff because he's tapping into something that is actually already there. He's going in on these, he's using pre-existing stereotypes. He didn't create the stereotype. He's just playing into them. They were jokes before. now he's talking about them like they're real, they're not jokes, they're serious, and he's being allowed to get away with it. So the real reason that there's going to need to be a split in Black America is going to be because you got 166 subscribers, right? How many do you have? I'm asking for a reason, not to shame you, but I'm asking as part of the point. How many subscribers do you have at last count, Fuller?
What was that? What were you saying?
I'm using the subscriber count to make a point. At your last count, how many subscribers did you have? I'm asking for a point though. I'm asking to make a point about nature.
Okay. Yeah. I have 598 right now. Last time. Yeah.
All right. I'm for some reason I remembered 166. That wasn't you. That was a new YouTuber. It was a new YouTuber who had F in the name. So whose name started with F. I apologize for getting it wrong. Yeah, you're at just shy of 600. I got 2,731. When people are trying to actually put out information that's going to help, this is what we wind up with. I mean, Edward Anderson has 3,000, I believe. But when you start getting divisive and putting out pseudo-science, then you get, however, I think 100,000 like what he's got. And the only time I've heard someone get a bunch of subscribers because they told the truth was Kevin Samuels. He had a bunch before, but he went up to over 1 million when he went viral for starting to give the Western women the business. That's the only time I've seen that happen. If Black America, because we already know he's not going to have more than 40 white subscribers, talking about Nature Boy. He ain't going to have 40 white ones. He's just not going to have that. So that means that the rest of the 100,000, which would be 99,960 subscribers are going to be Black. If Black folks are willing to support the foolishness more than they're willing to support even a sincere effort to help them out or to properly inform them, then that's going to be the reason that we need to have a split. And this thought came to me yesterday is actually after you and I had the discussion. It seems like we're going to have to start having an IQ test, if anything, an IQ and a morality criteria for a so-called separate community, separate from Blackistan. And that's going to be far more important than a criteria that's based on appearance, because
and you know, it's pretty sad too, because although we do have bleaching in Africa, we have like the skin bleaching problem and stuff like that in Africa. But for the most part, even in my family, my mother is light-skinned. You know, my mom was a LS woman, you know. My dad was jet black. I took after my dad. However, some of my siblings, they took after my mom. There was never any issue or anything like that. And no kind of like conflicts happened because of that. You know what I mean? It was always just like, okay, well, this is what it is. You know what I mean? And even when I went to Cuba, you know, and even in my part of Cabo Verde, there's people who are jet black as midnight. There's people who are LS with hazel eyes, you know, but that doesn't separate the fact that we're all on the same thing. And so when I was in Cuba, they called me Moreno. They're like, okay, you're Moreno. And I said, okay, I shrugged my shoulders. And this, mind you, this is coming from another Black in Cuba. He's like, okay, yeah, with your shade, you would be considered a Moreno. And I said, okay, no problem. You know, then he said, he introduced me to his family, and they were jet black. And he's like, okay, you would be called Negro. These would be called Negro. Now, granted, that was part of their how they did things like that. However, it didn't produce any conflicts. There was never any jokes or never any like things like Nature Boy saying like, oh, okay, if this guy is a mulatto, then this mulatto is weaker than, for example, a Moreno or a Negro. That never came into play. As a matter of fact, one of their best mulattoes did something that nobody has done before and still has not done. He won the 400 meters and the 800 meters in one Olympics. He won both gold medals, and nobody's ever done that before. Granted, he's a mulatto though. So what Nature Boy is doing is not like, he's actually adding to that problem. While some of us are trying to get away from that problem, you know, because now I'm gonna have that problem, you know. So that's the thing. Like now I'm gonna have that problem, and I already see it creeping in. Like about my skin and things like that. I see it creeping in more and more. You know, unfortunately, what has happened because of him as well, this has happened because of him as well, even more, is that sometimes you have LS women, and I don't like that. You know, I don't respect that. I really don't respect this at all. I really don't respect it when they do this. But you have some LS women who say, oh, I don't want no light-skinned man or anything like that. And they kind of like fetishize dark-skinned men because of this fool, because of what he says. You know, the thing is about this guy, and unfortunately, like, it's not even the truth. It's this guy brags about his manioca all the time and how big it is, and you know how like he's a mandingo and things like that. And because of that, these LS women like fetishize at that crap, you know. And you know, it's unfortunate that this trickles down. You know, this fetish trickles down, and he's contributing to that fetish, you know, by his jargon.
Well, he, as I mentioned, he didn't start these stereotypes, but he did play into them. And at the time that I first started to really hear people say this stuff repeatedly, of course, it was on the internet, and it was largely jokes. There was some skits that this comedy team called All Def Comedy on YouTube put out maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and they were skits. They were jokes. You could tell by the nature of them that we weren't really supposed to believe the stereotypes. They were really making fun of them. That was the impression that I got. And honestly, in my mindset back then in 2015 and 16, when I saw them, I didn't think that anybody would be dumb enough to really believe the stereotypes. So that these must be jokes. But somewhere down the line, people started to talk like these things were real. The jokes were real. And what he's done is he's taken these stereotypes and he's talked about them as though they're real. And this guy's 39 years old. Now, these stereotypes are things that when I was a teenager, yeah, you had women that believed that. There were women that believed that I was weaker than other guys. There were dudes that believed it. There were women that believed that my junk must be less than other brothers. And there were some dudes that would have assumed that though they just didn't, you know, the guys didn't care, but they would have believed that. But these are in the teens. But then what happens is that there was a shift from the teens believing this stuff and the adults knowing that it's jokes to teens growing into these adults and never learning that these were jokes and couldn't possibly be real. That was what wound up being the case. So yeah, he just played into something that was already there. But unfortunately, we know how our people tend to deteriorate and not improve.
But believe it or not, he's actually older than 39. I think he's near like 40 something. That's a lie too. Yeah, that's a lie too. Like as a matter of fact, he's been 38 for like 5 years now.
Oh damn. Okay, okay. So he's closer to my age then. Yeah, he's too old to be believing this stuff. And that doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense then for him to believe dumb stuff like this. That he's just entirely too old. But he's sitting and repeating it. And the real problem with Black America is that he has this following, 100,000 people going out to live with him, ladies going out to live with him and join his harem. He's got this following of people that and you know, he's got some post-war women out there with him. So that means they should be old enough to know this stuff is dumb, but they're not. I mean, they don't seem to know that this stuff can't even make, they don't see the illogic in these stereotypes. They're believing childish stereotypes while they're close to my age. But the truth be told, 18, really 16 is too old to believe this stuff, to be honest. But we've given a pass in our society to people who up until maybe 19 would believe this. But you take people that are in their 20s, that's bad enough. What about when they're in their 30s and their 40s and at the ages that they're at when they go and they join this guy? And they're believing these stereotypes. We know that what's going to happen is that as adults begin to believe this, there are going to be more fistfights between adults the way that there usually would be between high school students if this continues on. Because in all honesty, there are certain things, I mean, yeah, I'm in my middle 40s, but there are things that would make me fight. People don't do them, and I don't do these things to other people. And, you know, at your age, that certain things would make you fight, but you don't do them to people and they don't do them to you. But it's going to turn around. At this point, it's going to get to a point where they're going to be fist fights because people will start them because they will say and do things that would just chip away at someone's patience. Maybe COVID slowed that process down, but that's what will happen if we're not careful. Because in all honesty, I won't front. If I go to a fast food place and somebody comes behind me and they get their food before me, or someone cuts me in line, and then I call them on it and they say something like, you know what it is, or they insult my shade and then tell me I ain't gonna do nothing about it, that's probably when I would haul off and hit them. Not because I'm big and bad, but just because I'm human and I have limited patience like anyone. And the same thing with you, if somebody would have cut you in line and say something about how you ain't gonna do nothing for whatever reason, and they look at you and they point to something in your appearance as a basis for why you ain't gonna do nothing, and that justifies them cutting you in line, you may haul off and go on and start hitting them. And in your case, with you being in shape, you could do some serious damage. And that's what's irritating about it. He's being followed. And that's going to be the real reason why black folk are going to have to, like black folk with a brain are going to have to break away from, I'm not even going to call it Blackistan, I'll call it Niggistan. I mean, does that, but you tell me, am I wrong? Because you live in the States, am I wrong for thinking that if enough people follow him, it could lead to some physical conflicts later? Or am I just exaggerating?
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. I'm going to tell you something. What happened? I'm going to tell you something that happened. The woman that he was with, who witnessed his debauchery and who witnessed his evil ways, she still hasn't went to the police to say, yo, this dude is up to no good. He ain't doing anything right. He's causing people a lot of harm, a lot of problems and things like that. She still hasn't went to the police because she was witness to all the crap that happened herself, and she was complacent in it. And so, you know, I threw her and her supporters under the bus because of the simple fact that they could have been stopped it, but it's not being stopped because they know that they may get in trouble as well.
Oh man! So as soon as they face any consequences, they turn and run too.
Yes.
Okay, I see.
So that's why I bash the women. Like, you know, I bash all the women there. and I bashed the women who left too, because you were on this cock carousel, you got passed around, and you're not going to the cops because you don't want to get indicted.
Well, you're right to bash them then. I mean, in all honesty, I've been saying for a while that we need to start disrespecting the Western woman's preferences instead of respecting them and saying, well, it's screwed up, but you do what you want. We need to start disrespecting them and start saying, well, you can choose that, but you're still.
And not to cut you off, and I think this kind of like triggers something in me, you know, and I'm not trying to cut you off, but this triggers something in me a lot. So I read a book, and then one of the descriptions of like the Muslim slaves that were enslaved in America was that they were arrogant, unruly, and disrespectful. You know, that was what one of the slaveholders said. And then I'm reading another book right now, and they said that, you know, sometimes the slaves would just tee off on the owners if they said something, like if they even tried to correct them, you know. And so I think that triggers something in me as well, where like I'm at the point where if a Western woman does come at me sideways, I'm liable to call her a bitch. I'm liable to say F you. I'm liable to say all types of things and not even give a care anymore. You know, like just have that, because I think of what I read, and I think that, you know, although we're taught to be respectful, we're taught to be kind, there is also another area that if someone's being arrogant, you give that arrogance back to them too, so they can see how it feels. You know, because what I found out is that by me bashing and dragging the people who follow him, and by me dragging the women who actually were with him, it actually is like a response to how they look at other people. Because the thing is, they look at other people as if they look at regular people as if they're not doing anything, and they look at themselves as being better than regular people. And so that's how the bashing starts, because they truly believe that they're light workers. They have said that many times, that they're light workers, and they were sent to heal humanity and all types of mambo jumbo gibberish crap.
Well, when these guys get to doing, and you know, I can understand why you would be apt to go off on somebody verbally when they get disrespectful. I mean, for one, you're not walking around disrespecting people, you're not provoking it. So you would know right off the bat somebody's out of pocket if they do this to you. And in all honesty, this situation with him is a litmus test. It is a litmus test that shows the propensity in our people to follow whatever's wrong, and not only that, but to shun whatever is right. So since we have that propensity, that makes perfect sense that there will be people calling for a separation from the Black community as it is now to form a new community. Because as it is right now, the default Black community, you can tell by the votes, you can tell by the subscriber counts. The default Black community wants to be misled and lied to, wants to be told these things that are false, and then wants to avoid all consequences for bad decisions and curse everybody out, and even use violence to escape the consequences that they provoke. And they want to drag everyone else down with them. Eventually, it just becomes a motive of pure evil. And in all honesty, that's what they have. A lot of us are actually motivated, not even by greed anymore sometimes, but just by evil, just wanting to do something wrong and get away with it. And if that's going to be what the community is, then there have to be splinters off from it. It's going to be necessary. But by the same token, it also shows that we're not going to be able to take a lot of sisters with us. There are going to be more men that are going to be willing to leave than there will be women that will be willing to leave the dysfunction. And the reason we can tell that is that, well, look and see who goes and joins him. It's both in a nutshell. But women will actually leave lives that they had to go join his harem. And these are women that get marriage proposals from guys that live near them and work near them, and that don't require the same types of, they don't require the same type of uprooting. And they will turn those guys down to go and join his harem for some odd reason, and will sit there and let him curse them out about their complexions on video. Will turn the cameras onto their faces while he tells them, get back on camera, look up at me, look at God, and they'll sit there and deal with this. And if that's what their mindset is, that they actually want specifically a bad dude because he's bad, not even know he's bad, then that might very well mean that that selling out and becoming a so-called race traitor is a right way to go, not in the sense that say Larry Elder or Thomas Sowell has become, or how they've been stated to be, but just in the sense that, like, I guess what I'm saying is that maybe we have to start disrespecting the culture, as we call it. Maybe that's what has to be done. I don't know. I mean, do we have to start disrespecting the culture and do we have to just start disrespecting each other and disrespecting our defaults? Is that what has to be done? Do we have to just disband overall?
I mean, to be honest, the way I look at it is that I think I honestly think that
the best way to go is just go your own way, meaning that you get a group of like-minded people who are just going to be like, hey, this is what I had in mind, and those people will be like, yeah, this is what I had in mind too. And so you have to like just take it as that, and not and just disregard the other people who may think otherwise. Like, for example, I disassociate myself with anybody who calls their woman a queen or calls them a goddess. I disassociate myself with them because I'm again a traditional person, and that doesn't exist in our tradition. So like as I said before, I was more at home in the secret society lounge in Cuba than I was in, like, for example, one of these Pan-African or pro-Black circles, for the simple fact that everything, there were ground rules and foundations in the I guess you can say the lounge over there. Because their idea of masonry is not the same idea as masonry here, like that. It's not the same thing. Basically, it has it's a completely different thing. So when you experience these type of things, you of course are not gonna want to go back to the other things, and so that's why you just go your own way. And then if others like agree with what you're doing, then they're gonna follow suit. If they see what is working, they're gonna follow suit. Like, for example, one of my friends, shout outs to him, he went his own way. He just went his own way and stuck by some principles, and it worked out for him in the long run. He moved to Thailand. He got himself a Thai wife, and he opened a hotel there, and he opened a restaurant there. Now he's employing people. He's employing his people. So he provided the way, and they just followed the way. And so I think that's what's necessary, is just to do it. Not necessarily announce, okay, we're separating and stuff like that, but just to do it and just to stand by, okay, this is what we're going to allow, but we're not going to allow Nature Boy into this affair of ours. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or allow a Polite or allow a young Pharaoh into the affair, you know?
Well, that does have a lot of that sounds very promising if you enact the separation without really saying much about it. But if we're going to enact the separation, then we're going to have to be able to at least tell people on the phone or we have to be able to tell people at least on the phone or word of mouth that we are starting something else so that they can go ahead and do it. So I would say maybe we don't have to necessarily talk a whole lot about it, but we would have to be able to say this is what we're doing, at least to people that we know well enough, so that people could understand what the option is and they could contribute to it. Maybe that's what needs to be done. Now I'll ask you your opinion on something because I'm of the opinion that he's chosen because of his dysfunction. I think that these ladies that go to him would not be journeying to him if he was actually preaching some sort of morality and fair treatment of people, and he wasn't saying that he was God and he wanted something wholesome. And he was saying, but he was just polygynous. I don't think that if it was just that, they would be going to him the same way. Scream is of the opinion that they're not choosing him because of the dysfunction, but that they actually like him. And if he wasn't dysfunctional, they would still be into him. So we're of two different mindsets. What is your take on it, Fula?
Okay, so because he is a mini Dajjal, there's one thing that the Dajjal does. He has fire in his hands. There's fire, and then there's water. The water, if you jump into the water, it actually burns. But if you jump into the fire, it's actually cool. So what Nature Boy does is he creates this backdrop of paradise. For example, he creates the backdrop of like being in Puerto Rico, having this like paradise and stuff like that. And for the average Bonquisha who likes to be flown out, then that's appealing to them. Despite them hearing all the dysfunction which takes place there, they are sold on the paradise, basically. But then they find out that once they get there, it isn't paradise at all. You know, so they get sold on that. And also, he does like deceive them. He tries to pump them, put them on a pedestal and stuff like that, and you know, use word spells to get them hooked. But then once they get there, they find out a different story, and they usually leave that story. You know what I mean? Most of the time, he has a very high turnover rate when he's actually while he's actually there. Like when the women are there, there's actually a heavy turnover rate. As a matter of fact, unfortunately, and again, this is just repeating the cycle. The cycle is being repeated, that he is breeding more single mothers, because what happened was there was one guy there, and he's goofy. You know, he's completely goofy. He actually had a kid by a woman who was there with him, and because the woman did not want to sleep with Nature Boy, he just decided that he was going to give her a hard time, and eventually he kicked her out. And that guy, because he's so much of a beta, he stayed with Nature Boy, and he actually does not take care of his kid. So, you know, with this being said,
you know, I guess you can say that it's the deception which draws them in. You know, it's the deception of being somewhere. And also another factor is not having to work. But mind you, they're working for him. You know, that's the whole thing.
Okay, so he tells them they don't have to work, and then when they get there, they have to work.
For him, yes.
Mm-hmm.
According to him, having like a regular job or having a business, like owning a business or running a business, that is quote unquote Babylon. What he calls quote unquote Babylon. It's not just you doing what you have to do in order to live. That's quote unquote Babylon. So he presents this image that you don't have to do anything and you can just sit on your butt all day and quote unquote cosmic currency will come. And so you won't have to do anything. Now, granted, the minions who work for him are LS men. Okay. Without, I guess you can say those LS men are so, I guess you can say, so beta that you know, they really can't, they really don't know how to like survive on their own. That's the problem. You know, he's gotten it to a point where they can't even that if they wanted to even leave, they wouldn't be able to like even survive in the real world if they left, because of the simple fact of what he's done to them. You know, he's emasculated them.
Okay, so well, if does he have men of various shades that are there?
Yeah, he has like 2 DS men there. He has like 2, and then he has a two LS men, and then I don't know if he's still there, but he had this Punjabi guy who admitted to being a chronic masturbator as well. You know, he said he like that was what he did. He was like chronically just choking his chicken like every chance he got. So that's another factor. So that's another factor with them, is that most of the people he has over there, including the women, have done some kind of like weird thing, have done like some kind of like weird sexual thing, like maybe like one of the light-skinned guys, he messed with his sisters. You know, he was messing with his sisters. One of the dark-skinned guys, he started doing things with his cousins and stuff like that. I guess you can say one of the women, she used to be a prostitute. You know, so he has those type of elements over there. He doesn't really have normal elements over there. The LS woman that he was bashing, as a matter of fact, she rode cock carousels before she got there to him.
Okay, I see. So really, I figured that he was going to attract people of some sort of broken experience or a broken mind. I figured that that was going to be the case, regardless as to what their phenotype of shade was. But when you said, the reason I asked was because you said, well, he had LS men working for him. They were doing the work. Now, if he was assigning them to labor based on their shade, then that would have proven colorism right then and there, even more so than what he's already said from his own mouth. That would have proven an outright contempt. And the thing is that when you have people that are calling for this type of separation, another racial categorization based on DNA and phenotype, he actually fuels their arguments. That's the thing. And if he was physically choosing people's jobs based on that, then that would have really given fuel to what they were calling for. And that would have made him even more of a white supremacist by actually mistreating people based on actually mistreating people based on their shape, physically mistreating them based on shape, it would have gone beyond verbal abuse. And granted, if, as I've said before, if there's going to be recategorization, I'm leaving that up to the black population that stayed in the States, because I don't live there anymore. It's something that population there is just going to have to go ahead and decide for themselves. I don't particularly, I don't really have a dog in that fight because I don't live there anymore. I don't plan on going back to live anytime soon. But I did want to understand if he was going to be, I wanted to know exactly how divisive he was. That was my reason for asking. But it seems like when it comes to labor and who he'll take advantage of, that it probably would be just anybody really that anybody that would go for it. Anybody that would travel to go and live there and smell funky as often as rumors have it that they smell.
Well, yes, they do. They actually do. The sad thing is they were actually kicked off of a plane because of their odor, because of how bad their odor was. They were kicked off of a plane, because he doesn't really believe in showers. That's the thing. He doesn't think you should shower like all the time.
Fula, do you know what that means?
What does it mean?
If he doesn't believe you should shower, you see the jinn that influence or try to possess people don't really like clean environments. I mean, there are jinn that do live in them, but they're also not the ones that can try to possess people and influence human affairs directly. But the ones that really get involved with people like that, they don't like clean environments. They have a thing for, they thrive in dirty environments. And so that's what that would be. Because see, one of the things about people that lose their mind or they lose their intellect, or if they're just really sick, is that they stop grooming and they stop cleaning themselves. And that's a sign somebody's either really physically sick or they're mentally ill. That's one of the signs right there.
Yeah.
But let's say you got somebody that can sit up and actually use logic and or illogic in this case, and they can get haircuts and that sort of thing, but they won't actually wash their body. That's generally a sign that something we don't see is jumping in and out of them and telling them what to do.
Well, the thing is that's crazy about him is that he switches up so much, you never know what you're going to get. For example, he was telling people, oh, don't cut your hair. Your hair is, he said something stupid. He said your hair is an antenna. He said something very dumb. And so people fell for it. People, stopped cutting their hair and stuff like that. They stopped doing it. And then all of a sudden he cuts his hair. And then all of a sudden he tells people to stop wearing weaves and stuff like that, stop wearing fake hair. And then all of a sudden he gets extensions. Like he got this like crazy looking Jerry curl going on. And like he just does opposite of what he tells people to do. He said he complains about Babylon and stuff like that, and how we want to dress like the European, which he has said before. But it's crazy because on one of his videos he had something instead of I know you've heard of Louis Vuitton. So instead of having authentic Louis Vuitton, he has something called Louis Vuitton, because he was trying so hard to fit in with what was going on where he was at. So he didn't even care if it was counterfeit goods. He just said, okay, I'm going to get this, although it says Louis Vuitton,
Oh man. Okay, I see. Well, now when he got this Louis Vuitton, was he in the States at that time or was he in another country?
He was in the States at that time. But keep in mind, though, Puerto Rico is nothing but a U.S. territory. So he makes it seem like he's outside of Puerto Rico, but he's not. I called him on his BS one time, and he got mad at it. And he started calling me pussy and stuff like that. And, you know, I just said that your mama's a pussy. You know, I just said that back to him. And he proceeded to block me. You know, I just said, yeah, your mama's a pussy, though. And so what happened was he said that, you know, he was in his jungle backdrop or whatever the case, whatever the case there was, he was in the backdrop, the jungle backdrop. And so, you know, his followers were asking him, oh, where are you at? Oh, where are you at? You know, he caps and says, oh, I'm in Africa. And I said, yeah, you can stop capping, bro, because if you were in Africa, which is 8 hours ahead, it would be dark right now. It's very light outside where you are. And so that's when he snapped. That's when he said, that's when he made something up and said, everywhere is Africa. He said, everywhere is Africa, and that every piece of land derives from Africa. And so he goes on to say, you pussy, mind your own business, this, that, and the other. And so that's when I said, and that's indeed when I say, you know, your mom's a pussy. And so that's when he proceeded to block me.
Oh, God have mercy. Oh man, he said I'm in Africa. I was covering the microphone because I didn't want you to think I was laughing at you and interrupting you, but
no, he said that though. He said that though. He said that.
I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. Yeah, God. Oh Lord, have
go mercy. Ahead, let it out, bro. Let it out.
Man.
Go ahead, let it out.
I'm in Africa. So he says this at like 5 p.m. Eastern U.S. time. You know, I'm in Africa, when that would make it about 11 or 11 p.m. or 12 midnight if he was actually in Africa. And he's outside with the sunshine.
That's what I said. I'm like, okay, well, I said, well, if you're in Africa, why is it light outside? And I just got done talking to a family member in Africa, and it's like early in the morning out there. It's like the wee hours at night out there. So why is it morning where you are? And I said, Africa is 8 hours ahead. And so that's when he proceeded to say everywhere is Africa and this, that, and the other. And then he said pussy and all this other stuff, you know. And then that's when I proceeded to insult him furthermore, you know.
Okay, so this is during one of his lives.
Yeah, this was one of his lives. Yes. Yes.
Wow. Okay. Now, I mean, I know, granted, there's some parts, I've heard jokes about certain parts of the U.S. being Africa. For instance, New Orleans was voted the most African city in the United States back in 2005. That vote was taken in August. And as we know, a few weeks later, Katrina did a jihad on New Orleans. And the city ain't been the same since. I know some people joke about like the Sea Islands off the coast of South Carolina and Georgia being Africa because of the people and the land itself. I get some correlations that people make when they say that this is like home or it reminds us of home. I get that. But this dude was sitting up saying, I'm in Africa. Did he even specify what country?
No, he didn't. He didn't. The thing is, I don't even think he knows of the countries in Africa. I think he knows of only one country two countries, Ghana and Nigeria. But I don't think he knows of any other things in Africa, you know.
Okay, then. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's tell him about Mississippi, and then he'll probably start telling us I'm in Africa. Where at? I'm in Mississippi. I would love to see that happen. I really would, because that would have everybody cracking up at one time. I think I'd probably hear the laughter from over here.
Yeah. But I kid you not, he did do that though. I remember, I specifically remember me going in that live just to antagonize him, just to like antagonize him. And when he said that, that's when I said, yeah, like, how are you in Africa when it's like 8 hours ahead and it's morning where you are, but it's nighttime in Africa, you know. And
Yeah.
so when I did that, that's when he proceeded to say what he said.
Well, he could have at least tried to say that the Earth was flat. He could have at least tried that, but no, actually, that would have made him look just as dumb. I take that back. Some people do use that though. They try to say the Earth is flat.
Believe it or not, he has a lot of theories that people that he believes. One of the theories is that that all diseases are mental, and so he believes that no matter how many things that he sticks his joystick in, that he is not contracting anything, and that he doesn't have anything, and that he can that it doesn't exist. It basically, if he thinks he has it, then you're gonna have it. That's how he believes. That's how he runs his program.
Okay, I see. So, well, okay then. That's something there. He's just going to say that he can just alpha his way through incurable STDs like herpes and
Definitely. That's what he does. That's one of his things that, like, the diseases aren't real and things like that. There was actually one video where he bragged about having plenty of STDs, and actually he bragged about going to clinics and getting burnt every weekend. He was actually bragging about this. He actually said STDs was his middle name. That's what he actually said too.
Oh, you sent me that video. You sent me the link to that a while back. Actually, it was from no. You posted it up. That's what it was, and I saw it months ago, but I didn't realize that was actually Nature Boy.
Yeah, that's Nature Boy. Yeah, that's him. Yeah.
Yeah. At that time, I didn't realize that was him. But now now of course I know that was him because I saw it. You sent me the link again a few days ago, and I said, "Oh, wait a minute!" I commented on that video. That was just 5 months ago, but that's right. That's the same dude.
Yeah, that's the same dude. Yep.
Okay, and the thing was, it was actually a YouTuber that calls for a separate community for black admixed people. That posted up a video of him just ripping into one of his wives, talking about you light-skinned women, you white chicks, that sort of thing. That was what brought him to my attention again. And yeah. I thought his face looked familiar, but I didn't remember that it was from your video 5 months ago. And then, of course, and then, as you know, you sent me the link and I said, oh, yep, that's the same dude, same one. And then you sent me the other link that I've been telling them about, in which he argues, or rather, which he out talks Dukulu. Let's see, Scream, you asked who, do you mean, what's the name of the YouTuber that posted the video? Is that what you're asking, Scream? JT9000 says, how does Nature Boy even attract women? He's the worst example. You know what, JT9000, we just were talking about that a little while ago. My theory is that because Western women are attracted to evil by training, that they're trained to be attracted to evil, that they go for him because he's wrong. But
and not only that is also the fact that, don't let it fool you. All Nature Boy is like is a Pookie, Ray, Chad, and Tyrone, or Terrell, with just the gift of gab, but he's no different from those people, and we know that's what the Western woman likes.
Yeah, and Scream says that there's some logical things that they would have been attracted to in him, even if he wasn't dysfunctional. And so we're of the different mindset. And so JT, I would allow you to determine for your own which one of us makes the most sense. You can decide for yourself which one of us sounds the most logical to you. I think that I do think that staying in shape does help him. I imagine so, but that also takes a certain level of discipline this man obviously doesn't have. So he may not be in the same actual shape that he was before, but he probably just hasn't. Then again, that may be the only discipline he has. But when it comes to a mouthpiece, I noticed something, Scream, and that is that he doesn't really have a mouthpiece. He just overtalks people and he makes up pseudo-science Nijja babble as he goes along.
Well, believe it or not, though he's not really in shape. As a matter of fact, he's deformed. You know, like his body is uneven. Like basically, he like, believe it or not, like someone even said that he has like childbearing hips. You know, and he has a big ass belly because of the simple fact that, you know, all he does all day is just eat and sleep with those women pretty much. You know, at first he was in, like, I guess you can say he was fit or whatever the case may be, but that doesn't exist anymore. Because all he does is sit around and eat and have sex with the women.
Okay, so pretty much digging these women out is his only exercise.
Yes, that's it.
Okay, I see. Well, if that's it, you know what? In no recent video have I actually seen him stand up much. Maybe in some old ones, I think I saw him wearing a feather in his head, talking about how diseases were all mental, just like you said.
Yeah, and believe it or not to cut you off, I dang near like actually I dang near like broke my hand laughing too hard because during me being in the boxing gym, someone sent me a video of one of his followers, and one of his followers actually had on a fez. And so when I saw him wearing the fez, I just, that's why I was just like, I was hitting the bag, and then like I just started busting out laughing after I saw the fez. So it's just like with him, it's just, you never know what you're gonna get. Like 1 minute you can be a Moor, 1 minute you can be a Native American, 1 minute you can just be something else completely different, you know.
Yeah. There's one other guy that reminds me of that. And you also mentioned this other man's name before. Malachi York. He also had multiple personalities. It was the same thing with Malachi York. Different personalities. More Native American. Let me see, what else? Ancient Kemet. All of this. And of course, we know he's incarcerated, but one of the things that he began to teach when he was incarcerated was that at night he would go to Jupiter. He was transported from the prison to Jupiter to meet with these wise men at certain nights of the week. And then he was brought back. Now, the first question we should be asking is, why is he going through a court case to be released from prison? And he actually even claimed to be a Liberian diplomat who had diplomatic immunity from the Liberian embassy. This was one of his claims, and this was in his appeal. Why would he try to go through an appeals process to be released if somebody is transporting him out of the jail cell weekly and then dropping him back off in jail or in prison? Like, if they can come and transport you out, beam you out, why do they beam you right back into the prison cell and you trying to get out? Hell, if that's the case, then I would just say, look, you know what? Yeah, you can drop me off at my baby mama house. If I was him, that's what I would be saying. So he had that multiple personality thing going on. A Liberian diplomat was one of his personalities, and then of course, you know, the others that I mentioned. He was just Malachi was all over the place. And the funny thing is too, he would say that he was transported to Jupiter and then brought back in one night. Now, you and I know that even if you shone a flashlight at Jupiter, it would take so long for somebody there in orbit to see the flashlight beaming, if they could see it. I'm just saying that it would take so long for even light to get there and then get back that he'd spend most of the night traveling. He'd spend more time traveling than he would listening to some so-called wise men that are out in space going to other planets and planet hopping and keeping appointments with him in Jupiter of all places. Now, and of course, that's physically speaking, you and I know he can't be transported to Jupiter, let alone back to his cell in a matter of a few hours every night. So I really don't understand how he gets the validation that he does. But the fact that he gets that validation, I'm beginning to think is reason enough for Black folk with any sense, Black folk with an average IQ, to just break away. Because I think there are more, honestly, I believe that there are more of us who have some sense than there are, not just people like him, but even people that would follow him. But this is what
and another thing too is what they try to do is they try to show the foods they make, but they don't eat. You know, the foods look nasty, of course, you know, because honestly, if there's no baraka in the food, and you know, you have to put love in the food that you make. You know, that's just one of the rules that you can tell when someone's put love into the food they make. You can tell, you know, it tells by the taste. It tells by just the presentation of the food and everything like that. So what he'll try to do is he'll try to put all these dishes and stuff like that about eating clean and all this other stuff like that. But then the next time that when you turn your back and you turn your head and then you turn around again, this guy's eating Buffalo Wild Wings. You know, so it's just a walking contradiction, basically. You know, Buffalo Wild Wings with like hot sauce, but he swears like, oh, what we're eating is trash and stuff like that. But then he'll turn around and eat like Chinese food or something, Chinese takeout food or something like that, you know. So I just find it very funny that he contradicts himself every time.
That is odd as all get out. So here he is in Puerto Rico eating Buffalo Wild Wings and Chinese food, probably cooked by Mexican, telling everybody that we need to eat God knows what. Yeah, I think we probably eat healthier than he does, because I mean and that's the other thing. I've seen him sit up and just snack on chips in about 2 videos, I think. Just start popping, and they looked and sounded like chips he was popping in.
Yeah, and that's another thing too, is that like that's why I don't still get why people follow him, because he's literally contradicted every single thing he said. Everything he said, he has contradicted, unless it led to evil. That's the only time he's never contradicted, you know. So he's never contradicted like beating women. He's never contradicted like the just like all the bad things. But the alleged good things that he tries to bring up, or whatever the case may be, he's always contradicted them, because I don't think there's any good in him anymore at this point. You know, I don't think that exists in him anymore.
Well, it seems like there's not, because you know more about him than I do. And I appreciate you giving us all this information, by the way. And from what you're saying is he says a bunch of different things, but he only does the bad. And then as long as it's bad, he'll be consistent with that. And if it's good, he just won't do it. Well, that right there tells us that somebody is that right there tells us somebody evil and that we can't see is who he's listening to. He's listening to somebody that we can't hear or see.
Right.
But you and I, and even a few other people in the audience can tell exactly who it is to whom he's listening, because who else would help you along the way to do all the bad and none of the good? But so if people ever needed proof that the devil exists, well, I mean, this guy is part of it.
Yeah.
He is one of the proofs, but his following is another proof right there. The men and the women.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like with his following, they need to realize that they're going to get punished for actually supporting him too. You know, that's the thing, that they actually have a hand in doing what they actually have a hand in helping him do what he does.
Yep, they have a big hand in helping him do what they're the ones that validate him and legitimize him. And granted, I think a lot of us have grown up. I think we've all grown up with someone that was just really low down, immoral, or even anti-moral, ratchet, deserving of pretty much nothing in the way of validation. And then we see them doing wrong and they get validated. The difference is this. I knew a guy like that actually growing up. He and I went to the same middle school and we grew up in the same neighborhood. Dude was a bully. He was very much so a coward. Every time he had an argument with someone smaller than him, he wanted to go straight to fighting. And of course, people his own size and bigger actually hit him and got away with it. So you know when someone like that, you know that behavior means the person's a coward. And we actually scrapped because he chased after my brother. And there's a 5-year age gap between us. So when you're in middle school, your younger brother's off limits to people your age and size to fight, naturally speaking. He chased after him. So we scrapped. But the thing was, even though his whole card got pulled multiple times, if you understand that expression, even though people had proven that he was a coward. Funny thing was, there was one time he ran from somebody that was smaller than him. But the guy, he was only a little bit smaller than him, but the guy was from one of the bad neighborhoods. And of course, he was abundantly melanated. So this guy from my neighborhood did run. He ran for the bus to escape that fight. But this is middle school we're talking about, in high school. This is an adulthood where I saw people that knew this dude was a punk and a coward validate him anyway just because he could dance and he could play basketball. I didn't see this as an adult. As an adult, he's been validated. He's never worked a day in his life. He throws parties for a living. That's what he has, some kind of entertainment promotion company. So he threw parties, like he threw 4 parties in 1 year and made a full year's income off of throwing 4 parties. If anybody else in our city had tried to do the same thing and they were black, they would not have been paid to go into these parties. They would not have collected anything. Everybody, the black community in my home city would have done everything they could have done to undermine those efforts and try to get everything for free. He managed to get through this, but as an adult, people didn't really know how he was as a kid. And that's the difference. You know someone like that from childhood. JT 9000 knows somebody like that from childhood that was really bad but got all the breaks. Scream knows someone like that from childhood. We all do. But now we're looking at somebody that I thought was 39, and you're telling me, no, he's in his middle 40s. He's closer to my age. He's doing this, and he's getting all of this validation. What does this mean that we need to do to the black community since, what does it mean for the black community as a whole if they're going to validate somebody like this?
Well, there's another part of the story. So because like people are gullible and things like that, they basically are paying to party with him. And what I mean by that is that these people have to give their resources in order to be there with him. Meaning they have to give their
Social Security, their military check. I've heard that they even have done fraudulent PPP loans in order to get financing for what they do, and he takes the money. Their stimulus checks, they go to him, and everything of that sort. Now there was one time where a man came there and he had $300,000. That man unfortunately gave that a little bit more than $250,000 to that nature nut, and that money was spent on things like drones, dirt bikes, and ping pong tables, and nothing to make more money.
Okay. Nothing that okay. So nothing that made money, just dead end purchases. So if that's the case, though, I mean, guys like this get validated, and now you said this was Nature Boy that these people were giving their money to, right?
Definitely, most definitely.
All right, I was only making sure because my mic stopped for a second, and so that's why I didn't hear who was getting it, but I assumed that it was Nature Boy. In real life and online, these folks tend to get validation from what you and I have seen. I do agree with Scream's comment that people don't know Nature Boy a whole lot in real life. That I mean, I do imagine that just walking around, let's say in Houston's airport, I'm not going to bump into a brother that knows who Nature Boy is per se. It's not like Kevin Samuels. However,
Right. It's sad because with Nature Boy, because he believes himself to be above all, it's pretty sad that there was something that was that he is a very big supporter in the people who have done the worst. He has thrown Malcolm X under the bus as well. He threw him under the bus, and so also he supports R. Kelly, and he even had a post that said, "I love R. Kelly." That's what his post said. And so he supports Malachi York as well. These are all guys that he draws inspiration from.
what did he have to say about Malcolm X?
He said Malcolm X was a snitch. He said that he's doing more than Malcolm X. He said that Malcolm X is Malcolm X was a house Negro. He called Dr. Sebi a fraud. He called Nipsey Hussle a house Negro because believe it or not, one of the girls who is there, she actually took a picture with Nipsey Hussle, and Nipsey Hussle told me afterward, believe it or not, that he actually said, that girl has bad energy, and I said, oh yeah, and I said, and we talked a little bit about it, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, just stay away from her then, because one of his wives is she was in Los Angeles before, and so he tried to ask one of his wives, did he have any similarities to Nipsey Hussle, and of course his wife said not really, because she was smart enough to know that the difference between him and Ermias is like the difference between a Ferrari and a bucket. You know what I mean? So like, I'm glad she was smart enough not to say anything to disrespect him. Because if she did go that far to compare him to Ermias, then I would have probably told her sister to like, because I know her sister from being out here, because where I get my hair braided, her sister lives over there. And I would have probably told her sister, yo, you need to check your sister on what she's saying, you know, to gas this man up, you know. But she was smart enough not to say that, you know. So the little sense that she does have, at least she, you know, she kept that sense that she does have. And because he is not getting the validation he wants from, and they're not comparing him to these figures, he goes ahead and puts them through. He puts them under the bus.
Okay, so he said Malcolm was a snitch, and there's an audio recording of Malcolm refusing to snitch.
Exactly, I heard that. I heard that audio recording. As a matter of fact, before Malcolm even defected from the Nation of Islam, he was trying his best to get back in the Nation of Islam.
Yeah, there was a time he was trying, and even when it looked like he wouldn't get back in, he didn't give up Elijah to the feds, which is smart. He had a reason to not trust them, and that might be the reason that they were okay with not protecting him when they knew that he was going to be targeted. I think it was the FBI that wanted to go after Elijah. It wasn't the bossy squad of the NYPD, but they functioned like a mini FBI within New York City. That bossy squad that was assigned to him. But the thing is that, again, and I realized that that this guy, I understand now that the more I learn about him, the more wicked he's going to seem. I mean, he's fine with R. Kelly. And granted, if you have evidence that R. Kelly didn't do these things, that's different. But he didn't say anything about any evidence that R. Kelly didn't do what he's charged with. Plus, a lot of people have said, no, he did some stuff and even more. And he supports Malachi. So what it means is that he supports people who can manipulate and control other people. Those are the only ones he supports, which means he's a manipulator. Whether he consciously is thinking of himself as such or not, that's exactly what the hell he is. He's a manipulator. And that's all he respects. He doesn't respect people that just give you full disclosure and allow you to make your decision. So the more we learn about him, the worse he's going to see, the worse he's going to seem, and the worse he's going to be. But what does it mean? What does it show about Black America if this guy has this following that he's got? And for the record, apparently it's 88 subs. Scream says that he's looked and found there's 88 subs. But even that number, if Edward Anderson's got 3,000, forget about me. I'm new and I don't cam up. But let's say even if Edward Anderson has 3,000, and for the longest, I think, let's say we'll use that as an example, and you're at 600. What does that say about Black America that he has the following that he does have? Or rather, I should say, what does that say that we should do about Black America that he has the following that he does have?
Well, and back to your point, believe it or not, there was a woman who actually went there, and she already had 7 kids. So it's not like he's attracting high caliber women. He's attracting like the Shaquitas and the Bonquishas who have already rode the cock carousel, and then they just say, okay, well, maybe I'll just settle for this for now. You know, it's not like he's attracting like this, like these just like normal women. He's attracting women with baggage. It's just sad that there's a lot of them on his page in which follow him. You know, it's sad.
Well, it certainly is, but if this is the kind of guy that gets this dedication and the numbers that he gets, And granted, my reason for doing this is beyond him. He's the one that sticks out right now. But my reason for doing this is really not just him. It's the pattern, the overall pattern of guys like Malachi York being able to be afflicted with a multiple personality disorder and still being followed. Guys like R. Kelly being able to amass cults like this. And also Nature Boy, while being divisive and serving white supremacist interest. I'm asking largely because people can be insane and illogical, and we'll listen. And then somebody can come along and simply say something that is sane, logical, and prevents a lot of problems. And then we start to really attack them and go in on them and jump on them. It hasn't happened to me so much, but this has happened to other people. It happened to Malcolm when he was alive. When Malcolm was alive, as much as he was sought after as a speaker, he was also always being attacked for being hateful and for hating white folks, which he had every moral right to do at that time, and yet he still did not. He was attacked for that. And I'm just wondering, for black folk, what should black folk, like those in the audience, what should their relationship be with the rest of Black America if black folks have a tendency to validate or at least give a tacit nod of approval only to those who are outspoken and foolish at the same time?
Well, that's what I'm saying. For me personally, I just disassociate myself with them, like completely. Like I really just like disassociate myself, and I don't even try to it's not my position to teach, or it's not my position to like tell people, okay, this is wrong, you shouldn't be doing this, because they know better. They're at an age where they should know better, but they don't do any better. So that's why I just, like, me personally, stay away, because if you know better, you do better. That's the thing. If you know better, you have to do better. But they know better and they don't do better. So that's why I don't really associate myself with them. You know what I mean? That's why it's just like I just like keep them at a distance,
Gotcha. So you'll do that. You wouldn't presume to tell the audience to do it, but that's what you're doing, and you're advising it's worked for you.
Yeah, it's worked for me. It's worked for me, actually. The thing is like we have a Senegalese proverb. I can't remember what it is, but when I go abroad or when I do a trip, nobody knows that I'm actually planning to do it until I'm actually on my way out. When I went to Cuba, nobody knew that I was actually going there. I just said one day that, I'm on my way to Cuba right now. And people were just like surprised that I actually was going there. Believe it or not. And she thought she was going to go. But, and I get it. I get that she's looking to be thrilled and stuff like that. But there was one older woman who's definitely already hit the wall, and whose daughter I was looking at more attractive than she was actually. She saw pictures of me in Cuba, and then that's when all of a sudden, like, she was like now trying to talk to me and stuff like that, and all this other stuff. So what I'm getting at is that, I need to find the Senegalese proverb, but it's like a proverb about like how you don't say anything. I gotta ask my friend what it was, but it has something to do with like coughing on the road. And it just basically means you don't tell people like what you're doing. You just pretty much plan out and do it. Like, and you know, once you actually do it, people are surprised that you were actually planning to do it in the first place. You know what I mean? So that's how I go about it. You know, I just like don't tell anybody what I'm doing, you know, and then I don't associate myself with the Pan-Africanists. I don't associate myself with the conscious Hotep people. I don't associate myself with the Uncle Tom Africans. I don't associate myself with those group of people. Like I had to kind of learn that sometimes solitude is the best thing for that you can have going for you, as long as you have like Quran al-Karim and other books at your disposal.
Well, you've tapped into the guidance that we have, and it's the guidance that I've told my audience before is going to be the solution for not only Black folks, but for any group of people that find themselves downtrodden and oppressed, especially if they're assisting in their own oppression, which is exactly what Black folks have been doing, being oppressed from the outside and then assisting in it from the inside. There will be those who, in all honesty, there will be those who will say, well, it could be the case. They would at least admit to the possibility of the truth of what we're saying. And then there are those who say, yeah, that's truth. I've already accepted it. And they will have already taken their shahada, or they're about to. And then there are others that come and they argue. And granted, you and I know that when they argue, they have various reasons. They come in different categories themselves. The two categories that we're most familiar with are the ones who really believe what their arguments are, and then those who just don't want to exercise any discipline. They want that liquor, they want to fornicate, they probably want to smoke, they want that pork chop and that ham hock too. And they don't want to wake up early unless it's for work. Really, they don't want to wake up early at all. And they aren't always that clear from each other, because there are people who fall in both categories. But the ones who really believe these arguments usually point to someone like the ones that I've mentioned as being these minor antichrist, or just manipulators with a cult-like following, i.e. Malachi York, Nature Boy, and to a certain extent even R. Kelly, although he's not really ever preached a new religion that we know about. They add fuel to the fire of those who argue against the solution that we're saying, that we're offering. And they're saying it can't be a solution. In the event, though, that they're doing this and then even claiming that they themselves are messengers, how is it that they're able to claim to be messengers of God when they're on this low vibrational level and even getting kicked off planes for stinking, like you just told us, and yet and still someone that actually was reported by those who lived with him to walk the walk and not just talk the talk, get discarded and get blamed for stuff that they really didn't do. The way that some people slander prophets, not just Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but the way they slander prophets in general, actually, including Muhammad. How is that people are able to believe that a minor antichrist is actually a messenger and should be listened to, and then turn around and believe that someone who didn't speak from their own mouths or didn't speak from their own minds and opinions was actually an oppressor of people?
Well, the thing is, and I'm just doing it for the sake of like the greater public. Let's take the religion out of it. What if you just had a mind of your own and decided, okay, well, I want to do this. I think it is a good idea. What if you just had a mind of your own to say that, you know, maybe I want to go against the crowd. Maybe I want to do something different that may require me to separate myself from the mass of people. Like, even I have a guy right now, but granted he's Caribbean, he's he's from St. Kitts. He's mixed with St. Kitts and mixed with Cuban. He has pictures of himself in Colombia, and he got himself his Colombian wife, and he's doing what he had to do. But the problem is, it's not a problem, but he did it by himself. He didn't wait around for someone to, like, you know what I mean? Like, he didn't wait around for that person to, like, take the helm. He did it himself. And so that's why I'm saying that may require separation. You know what I mean? Because when it comes down to it, only you can save you. You know what I mean? Only you can establish traditionalism in your household. And unfortunately, a lot of people probably aren't going to take heed anyway. You know, unfortunately. Although it's going to work for the greater good. It's going to work for the greater good for you and your family, because you got to see what kind of men are produced when traditional households are in play. Like I always use this example, but Khabib Nurmagomedov, you know, traditional household in play made a lot of the UFC women mad because they're wicked wishes of the West, but at the same time, his formula proved true. He's undefeated and had no kind of scandals or anything of that sort. So it works. I have another friend right now who's in the pro ranks, and he's very much quiet, very much reserved, and very much to himself. And his example works as well. And he starves the Western women of the attention, you know. But but unfortunately, Nature Boy is kind of like a Western woman because he craves attention. He craves validation. You know, as a matter of fact, I don't think he knows how to be quiet, to be honest with you. To be completely honest with you, I don't think he knows how to be quiet. I've heard reports that he will, like off camera, he'll go on a rant for like 5 hours straight. I've heard. I don't know how true this is, but this is just something I've heard.
Well, if his message was really that important to him, even, he would crave attention to the message and not to himself. Unfortunately, this guy here has contributed, and not only him, really, even with only 88,000 subscribers, he's contributed to holding us back for, I don't know, maybe another century. I would say that probably those who he mentioned as his heroes, together with him, have contributed to holding us back for, I say another century. If a generation is 30 years, then I'd put it right at another century, because there will be 3 more generations on average that it takes for things to be changed to the point that there's no ancestral memory of what it was like before a particular change. And so, unfortunately, it would take that long before we would, if we started to try to clean up today from specifically those influences, then it would take about 3 more generations before there was no ancestral memory, no living memory of the particular dysfunctions we were trying to get rid of, i.e. calling human beings gods, as an example, attributing negative personality traits at that to phenotype and appearance. That would take about 90 years to get rid of, I guess. But this guy here, while it's clear he does crave the attention, definitely. That's why he would say one thing and turn around and do another. And then he would say something good and then turn around and not do it, but do something wrong. Then turn around and say something bad and actually do it. He would get the attention that way. And I'm not going to lie. There's one thing I think that we do have to admit. And tell me what you think about my theory. My theory is that we actually created someone like this. Not just him, but others like him. That my theory is that they're a direct result of the culture. They're not just holding the culture back, but that they are a direct result of the dysfunction in the culture and in the community. Am I going too far with that, though, from what you can see?
Actually, there's something there because of the simple fact that it takes a community effort to create this man. And the one thing is that there's a goofy crackhead who actually was a former crackhead named Cy Netter, who hosts a show, and he gave the people like Young Pharaoh a platform. He gave the people like Polite a platform. He gave the people like Nature Boy a platform. And so when these people gave him the platform, that's how they were created. That's how it just trickled down, you know. So you are partially right about that, you know.
Okay. Well, Sonetter, I didn't know that he used to be on crack. I learned that from you, and it's good you're keeping up with these minor antichrist and those who've given them platforms. Because I say this because I'm not even saying Sonetter is definitely a minor antichrist, because I don't really know much about what he says. I don't know much about his platform. I just know his name. But if he's not really preaching things that are damaging, and then he just gives someone a platform, and then that person later on starts to preach it, then that's an example of the culture of the community creating these monsters. But then again, of course, Brother Polite probably would have had this monster in him beforehand anyway. But I'm also wondering, I mean, even though those of us with average IQs are going to have to break away from not only these types of folks, but their followers and people dumb enough to listen to them and repeat it like it's fact, talking about cells mirror astrological stellar patterns. The word is astronomical. And if people think when they're 19 or when they're 17, I'm too cool to learn this shit right now in school. Then when they get older, they shouldn't be talking about it. But they're dumb enough to listen and get the facts wrong and then turn around and get it wrong and repeat it to somebody else. Listen to someone else get it wrong and then repeat it wrongly to someone else. And I'm wondering how much we have to do with that, even though we probably gonna have to separate from low IQ stand and anti-intellectual stand. The fact is that we probably got to understand that to a certain extent our population has contributed to this. Because see, I remember R. Kelly, he got pinned down. His brother said, oh, he got pinned down by, I think it was an older cousin of theirs, an older lady cousin that pinned down R. Kelly when he was young and had her way with him. So somebody created a monster before he just got to be this grown man monster we know about that had a penchant for underage girls. Just as one example. And I realized that Nature Boy's platform is dangerous. He may or may not be himself, but his platform is. But I'm also wondering how much of that had to do with us. What was it that somebody didn't do or did to him in his childhood that created this monster that we're seeing right now? And what happened to Brother Polite when he was young? And what happened to Young Pharaoh? You said his name was Young Pharaoh? Or I may have the name wrong, but I'm wondering what really happened.
No, the name is Young Pharaoh. You're right.
Okay. So I'm wondering what it was that was done to these dudes by some of us that created this. And so my question for you would be, as someone coming from an intact culture for the most part, I say for the most part, because I know colonization did do some numbers on the entire continent.
Yes, definitely.
But as coming from, for the most part, at the very least, a functional culture, at the very least, does it make more sense from your standpoint that we would either just those of us with an IQ would just leave behind those of us without it, as you said, for the most part, just don't associate, or that we just confront the culture? That we, or is it both?
You may have to do a little bit of both. You may have to go without you know, these people who follow behind these people, and then on top of that, you may have to when these people, if these people have a problem with you going your own way, then you're going to have to confront them about their problems and what they brought and why you do what you do. You know what I mean? That's what it has to be. And if they don't understand, you still just have to continue to go your own way.
Is there anything, as far as you know, that we would be able to do to provide a safe alternative for the kids that are coming up under the same dysfunction before they wind up like?
Honestly, I think the best thing to do for a kid is just to channel their passion early on and just like really focus on that passion and get them focused, and also just like keep our teachings intact with that, and also try to give them a head start. Unfortunately, let's just be honest, technology is just really, really big right now. I mean, and kids are going to be using, you know, technology sooner now. So you might as well just try to get them into some training into that technology early on, so they can be focused on something. You know what I mean? Like just try to get them to focus on something. That's the only thing I can really suggest, is just have these kids focus on something, have these kids in physical activities, so they won't have to like be doing certain things that these women do, you know, and also do, so they won't have to do certain things that these men do, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I see that. I see what you mean. It may just have to be a bit of both, and then offering kids some sort of alternative. And truth be told, that may be necessary. Now, I'm part of the camp that tells men to not do this except on a particular condition. And so I admit, I'm not telling you not to advise it if it's your honest opinion. I'm just admitting that I am part of the camp that has told black men to only be willing to go back and mentor the youth in the community under the condition that they're allowed to tell these youth about the bad mating choices of their moms and dads, but definitely their moms. And I say that largely because, as you know, in the African American community, you already know how African American women pick their men. They actually look for, if you ask me, they look for guys like Nature Boy because he's dysfunctional. Whereas Scream says he just has what they want anyway, and it happens that he's dysfunctional. But we know that the mating criteria of the African American woman, the Western woman in general, is jacked up. And because of that, they look for men to be cleanup. They look for good guys to be cleanup men. And these are men they would have never, ever conceived these kids with, to be the cleanup men and go back and mentor and set up these programs and give alternatives to these kids to redirect their energy and stay out of trouble. It may, I admit, even though I have advised against it, it may be necessary for the youth. I mean, after all, I asked the question and you answered it honestly. It may very well be necessary. But if that's necessary, then if that's what it's going to take, I'm afraid that a growing number of black men are going to refuse. I say growing number because right now there's still enough that will do so. But that number is definitely dwindling as red pill information becomes more widespread. And I'm one of them. I mean, I even told my son, and he's one of them. His friends are among them. They say, no, we do not go back. If we're not breeding, we don't feed.
Well, here's what I mean. Here's what I mean by that. You have to do it for your own kids. That's the thing. Like for your own kids, you have to do that. Because if you don't do it, then they're going to get caught up in this quagmire. So for your own kids, yes, I would suggest yes. You know what I mean? You have to train your kids a certain way. Even my dad, you know, he trained me to be pretty rogue, you know what I mean? But rogue for the right reasons, you know what I mean? So that's why I'm saying that if you have kids and you're responsible, because kids are a trust from God, it's your responsibility to train those kids to be militant men who stay sucker free. You know, that's the thing.
Yes, sir. Got it. And that is a big difference. That makes all the difference in the world. What you're saying is do right by your own kids, and instead of being a cleanup man for somebody else who chose the man she chose because he's the type to not do right by his own kids. And that's vastly different. So I stand corrected as for my misunderstanding of your initial advice. And I wanted to ask this question too that Reynolds asked, and that is where you're going to go. Now, I have an answer for me, Reynolds. I have options. The same thing that's been lately weaponized against me sometimes and more so against others is the reason that I do have some options. As far as where I could go if I just had to, if I had to cut off the entire black community, or if the entire black community wound up cutting me off as this idea spreads to throw out the one drop rule. If I got recategorized after throwing out the one drop rule, and I was just told you're out. If I was told you're related to us, but you're not us anymore, I got options, but I can't speak for everybody. So Fuller, would you like to handle this question as to where we would go? Those of us that would say we're going to split off from the either from the black community entirely, or we're going to split off from just the low IQ elements of it. Would you like to take that one?
Well, to be honest, I mean, there's so many things available to you that you just have to research and you just have to read. I mean, that's the bottom line. I know people right now who were fed up with Uncle Tom Africans and stuff like that, and so they just, you know, it's not the best place they went to, but they've carved their place in the different you know, Soviet countries. You know, I know some successful Africans over there in Eastern Europe doing what they need to do, you know, who live sheltered, quiet lives and just do what they need to do, you know, who don't want to fit into the whole Western European experience, you know, so there's other places you can go. There's many places you can go. You know what I mean? There's many other places you can go with black people who don't think like that. That's the thing. You can go to places where there's different shades of black people who don't share the notion and won't fall for the BS that what's being put out there right now. It's a matter of your researching, and it's a matter of how you carry yourself, how you present yourself. If you present I guarantee you're gonna, I mean, for example, Nature Boy was kicked out of Hawaii. How the hell do you get kicked out of Hawaii?
Oh, wow.
He got kicked out of Hawaii because of how he presented himself. He thought he can break the rules, thought he can do certain things, and they weren't having it. So they kicked him out. And so that's the thing about, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but if you're any Westerner and you go to a foreign place and you think you're going to bring like a different way of doing things and you're not going to conform to the way they're doing things over there, then you got another thing coming, period.
Okay, yeah, because they're not going to just allow, I mean, granted, people don't let you just walk up in the house and do what you want to do and you ain't paying the rent or the mortgage, granted. And same thing with Hawaii. But man, when you said he got kicked out of Hawaii, I thought, okay, so they're another country now? Because you can't technically get kicked out of even a territory per se, as far as I know. It depends on what contract the U.S. territory has with the United States central government. But a state doesn't really have that. They don't really, you know, a state doesn't really have those extradition powers per se. So you'd have to be wanted somewhere else before they would say, okay, well, you're getting on the plane with these two officers, put these handcuffs on, and you're going back to where you're a wanted person. To get kicked out of Hawaii. I knew he got arrested in Hawaii for breaking the curfew. I read about that. I didn't know they somehow kicked him out. And the fact is that they were willing to organize something like that, however they did it legally or extra legally, that does say a lot about someone. And you know, man, I appreciate you telling my audience about this minor antichrist. I really do think that once you get the mic and studio and whatever else you were setting up done, that you should certainly go ahead and tell everybody even more about him, because it's beyond just what I know, and it's beyond just what you told me. But what you told me is still so much that I know a lot of people in the audience don't necessarily know that this kind of person is out there and getting the validation that they're getting. This is something that they need to know about, because it says a lot when they kick you out of Hawaii and you're a citizen, you're in the country legally, and they're a state, and they're not a territory with a contract that allows them to do that. It says something that they were going to do the same thing to you that an actual foreign country did. It says a lot. They need to know why this guy needs to not only not be validated, but actually needs to be canceled. I'm going to answer this question for JT. They were kicked out of Indonesia. They were in Bali specifically. And the people in Bali pretty much said, look, we already take issues with certain foreigners that come in. Because they try to drive prices up to where we locals can't afford it. So they didn't really have a problem with these ladies being picked up. But the thing was that these ladies, they were picked up on immigration fraud charges. But they drew attention to themselves, openly advertising that they were flouting immigration rules, that they were alphabet mafia. And that they were flouting these immigration rules, and somebody looked into it and saw that they actually had not even gone in legally, because in order to live in Indonesia, it's different from visiting, and you could make a visa run legally speaking and then come back in. But what they were doing apparently was something else, I guess. And they said, or they admitted to living there without going through the proper paperwork. So the state of Bali, I think, was the one that arrested them, but it was the central government that put them out on immigration fraud charges, I think. So they weren't actually charged with the LGBTQ thing, legally speaking. But of course, they were going to say that that's why they got targeted. And in fact, you know what? They even tried to say it was because they were black, JT. I think one of them did. And one of the Indonesian men said that really does not fly. Because we don't have a concept of wanting to kick somebody out for something that they can't help, something that they don't choose. We don't view white or black as being superior over here. The laws are the same for everybody. And I believe it, because that actually is the reputation that Indonesians have. But yeah, to answer your question, that's what that was, JT 9000. So Fuller, man, I appreciate you giving this information and being patient and really contributing substance to our body of knowledge about this dude and even some others. I want to ask, do you know a lot of the details about Malachi York? Do you think you'll be able to fill us in on him one day too?
I don't know a lot of the details, but I can research it and see. But I do know that his son claims that he's East African, and he doesn't know a lick of any East African language, be it Swahili, be it Beja, be it Tigray, be it Tigrinya, be it Amharic, be it anything. He has no knowledge of any of those languages. So I think it's just a fake claim that he makes. And I understand that no East African will accept him anyway, for the simple fact that he is a cult as well. You know, that's the thing.
So his son is also into that cult thing.
Yeah. The son is into the cult thing too. He didn't learn from his father.
He didn't learn to do any better from his father. He's into the cult thing too.
Whoa, man. Okay. All right. So if we ain't careful, his son's gonna also be on some video talking about I'm in Africa, and somebody asked him where, and he says I'm in Sudan, Tennessee, or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Definitely. Yeah,
Okay. I see.
yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Well, I guess I'm going to have to do the same thing. And I guess maybe one day I'm going to go live. And when they ask me where, I'm saying I'm an African, when they ask me which country, maybe I'll say Jamaica, just to sound
Yeah,
really
you can.
American and,
You
and
can.
ignorant.
You can. You can. The thing is that if they would read into like just different things and different things about like what people did for freedom and just what people did who were of black skin and things like that, I would hope that they would like maybe have a different perspective and not be as ignorant as they are, because they surely are 110% ignorant.
Yeah, they certainly are. They got, I hate to say it, but they're going to have Black Americans looking, this continues on. It's going to be a bad look for us internationally, worse than what Hollywood did.
Mm-hmm.
Because at least people know that Hollywood puts out fiction movies. But these guys,
Right.
man, the folks are gonna come up to us and say, "Okay, is this guy an actor or is this his real name?" And this is really what he's saying. That's gonna be something else right there. Oh my! So, in any case, if you know about the sun, I guess one day we'll have to do another one in which we inform the audience of the sun if there's a lot to
Yeah.
tell.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, the son actually continued on the cock carousel, which Nature Boy started, and one of the women went to the sun. That was with Nature Boy. She actually went to the sun. She went to quite a few guys. She's been passed around quite a bit now, and she's even admitted that she's had herpes as well.
If
But
she
yeah,
has had it, then
and she said she had herpes. And the bad thing is that again, that shows how weak we are as men, that you would take on a woman who's burning. You know, if she went near me, I would just jump into the bushes or something like that. Or, I would definitely would not I wouldn't want her in my presence. I'll just be like, get away, get away from me.
well, that's the other thing. The sad thing about about these ladies that are burning. We already know in the Western world that the ladies have this really high set of standards. We understand that, and that the men have to meet so much. And in a nutshell, the thing is this: all it takes, and I don't agree. I just know what it is that's driving a lot of these men to overlook it. Because you think about it, some of these dudes, man, they meet several ladies, and all of them got it because it seems to be so prevalent, especially among ladies. A high number of ladies in the U.S. are on psychotropic medications and have had an STI at some point in their life, sometimes curable, sometimes not. But what's sad about that, though, man, is that there are a lot of guys out there that really think that you're just not going to find it because all you got to do is have standards similar to the ones that you have to meet. Just have standards similar for them to meet. And when you eliminate the ones that are on psychotropic medication that have picked up an STI, whether they still have it or not, you wind up eliminating almost all of them. It's
Yeah,
that
it's
bad.
true. Yeah, it's true. And that's one of the reasons why, like, I never really settled down with the Western woman, is because of the simple fact that, like, the majority of Western women are just gonna have baggage. And I don't need that baggage, especially when, like, I had to manage my affairs, and I had to manage it in such a way where I had to, like, pretty much do it. Go through many emotions that I had to keep concealed myself, but I don't like broadcast and say things like you know, I need to be treated like a goddess because I've been through so much, or I need to be treated like a queen because I've been through so much and so much trauma. And most of the trauma that they went through, they inflicted it on themselves, you know, by the choices they made. That's the whole thing.
Yeah. As I've said before, and I understand the screen may feel differently, but as I've said before, they would not have chosen these men if trauma was not waiting on them.
Yeah.
And that's of course another topic for not just one other recording, but several other recordings on top of the ones I already got on that subject. But maybe one day we'll come on and let these gentlemen know what awaits them if they go to the right parts of back home. If they've been in the audience actually do go back to Africa, not like Nature Boy, you know, just in the mind going back and picking somewhere tropical and saying I'm in Africa like it's all one country, but they go to the right parts of back home. Maybe one day we can let them know who and what is waiting for them if they want to start their own legacy. And do you have any closing thoughts though before we close out?
Nah, no closing thoughts. I just Jazakallah khair, may Allah reward you for having me on and stuff like that. You know, if I said something wrong, you know, it wasn't me that said it wrong. It was just lower nafs or whatever the case may be. But yeah, Jazakallah khair, appreciate it. And inshallah, we're gonna do it again, and we're just gonna cover these issues and, you know, just keep it going. You know, just keep this thing going. It's a good momentum, basically.
Excellent, sir. And I appreciate you coming on and being patient with me and helping out. I look forward to the next one. And until the next time, everybody, you know what I'm going to say. Black heart, black mind, blackout, assalamu alaikum. And black heterosexual non-select male power just because they don't like it. And black patriarchy until extinction or judgment day.